Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 meeting of the Plymouth Select Board. The board is going to be entering into executive session. The Select Board will hold an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I do so declare. This is in relation to the Landers Farm Road, and the value of real property thereon. The parcel IDs are listed on our agenda. The Select Board will hold another executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 6, to consider the purchase, lease, exchange, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. I do so declare. This is in relation to the Symes House, 29 Manamet Point Road. Is there a motion to enter into an executive session?
So moved.
Ms. Iaquinto makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cohan seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Myself, yes. The board will return at approximately 6 p.m. Thank you, folks, for your patience. The board is back from executive session. We are called back to order. I will pass things over to my counterpart on the planning board, Mr. Bulletin, to call his meeting to order.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. It being 6:11 and a quorum present, I hereby call this meeting of the Plymouth Planning Board to order.
Thank you, sir. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of our meeting after first notifying the chair and subject to the reasonable requirements of the chair so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of each meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recordings. I'm aware that the local scene is recording this meeting. Is there anyone else who's making an audio or video recording of this meeting tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on March 28, 2025, this meeting will be conducted via remote means and in person. Members of the public who wish to watch this meeting may do so in the following manner: tuning into government cable access channels, Comcast 9 and Verizon 47. Watch the meeting as it's aired live. You can also watch on the local scene's website or the YouTube platform. Just a note for some folks, we heard from the local scene that Comcast Channel 9 may be having some audio problems, and they're working on that. Members of the public who wish to participate may do so in the following manner: appearing in person at the Great Hall here in Plymouth Town Hall at 26 Court Street, or remotely using the Zoom link, which is posted on our agenda and available on the website. Please join the board in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a number of administrative notes here to approve tonight. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve the listed administrative notes as a group.
Mr. Canty makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Myself, yes. I will now move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to register a public comment? Please come up to the podium and introduce yourself, Mr. Cirque.
Rich Cirque, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. On April 7, a Superior Court judge issued a preliminary injunction enjoining the town manager from interfering in the management of the Plymouth Airport and from retaliating in any way against the airport commissioners for asserting the commission's statutory independence from municipal control. Yesterday, the Airport Commission filed a complaint for contempt against the town manager because of the following actions taken by him after April 7. On April 28, a week ago today, the town manager texted the former airport manager asking him, out of the blue, whether 5 named commissioners had leases for their businesses at the airport. On May 1, last Friday, the town manager issued a directive to all town departments to immediately cease providing 24 enumerated finance functions essential to the proper functioning of the airport, including but not limited to removing airport vehicles and buildings from the town's insurance policy. The Airport Commission's contempt complaint states that the town manager's April 28 and May 1 communications constituted direct violations of the court's injunctions, which barred interference by him with the management of the airport and retaliation by him against the commission or its members. A hearing was held this afternoon in the Superior Court, which I attended. In his comments from the bench, the judge showed that he quickly saw through the town manager's protestations to the contrary. He used the word cute to describe the behavior of the town manager. The judge scheduled a full trial on May 14, a week from tomorrow, on the Airport Commission's contempt complaint. This board needs to immediately take action to rein in this town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Cirque. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to register a comment with the board? Is there anyone online? All right, we'll move on. We'll now enter into our agenda proper, which is a joint meeting with the planning board. We'll first start with an informational presentation on the conceptual redevelopment of 179 Court Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. My name is Bill Sims. I am counsel to HYM Development, who is the developer for this particular project on behalf of ESL, Experience Senior Living. I am not going to take up too much time because we have limited, and I have with me tonight Seamus Joyce and Doug Mance from HYM, who will be presenting the basic concept and overview of the project for everybody's consideration. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Mans. I'm a partner and chief investment officer for the HYM Investment Group. We are a Boston-based developer and really excited to be here. So really appreciate the time of both boards tonight. Also joined by Seamus Joyce, who is on this project as well on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, we're here to talk about our proposed project. Wait, make sure I'm doing this right. Hold on a second. All right, there we go. And actually, we might try to put that full screen. Yep. So 179 Court Street. So this is the old Benny's Plaza site. We currently have this under contract to purchase, subject to permits and approvals. We've been going through our due diligence and having various meetings with a few town officials, but we're really excited about this potential opportunity. But this is the site. I'm sure many of you know it very well. This just zooms in. So again, it shows you the boundaries of the site itself. And if I can do, and this is also where Piappi's Liquors is too as well, which will be remaining in the redevelopment. So just really quickly, this is a joint venture. So HYM is a Boston-based developer. We're the local developer. The owner of the project, or part owner of the project, will be Next Core Group. They're actually based out of Denver. They own basically senior housing facilities, medical office buildings, et cetera. The operator of the site will be Experience Senior Living. That's the actual operator that will be running the facility or the community. And then TAT is the architect. So what we're proposing here really is a senior living community, along with some mix of uses as well, too. And I'll go through that in a little bit further detail. Just really quickly on HYM, we are Boston-based. We've done a number of developments, including some existing senior housing. The upper left is the Newbury at Brookline, which we completed in 2025. So that's in Brookline, Massachusetts. We've done residential. We've done some mixed use. We also had the fun privilege of actually building the Bruins training facility, the Warrior Ice Arena in Boston too, which was a lot of fun. So just, we're very eclectic. We're Boston-based. We've been in business for over 16 years. We really love the work that we do. So just quickly on NextCore, again, a national ownership group that's based in Denver, Colorado. Again, they own a lot of communities across the United States. Again, I'll just try to keep it short and sweet. So what we are proposing, again, is the core use of the site would be a senior living community, which is a combination of independent living, assisted living, and memory care units, all right? It's really more of a care community versus just apartments. So again, it is senior living. The average age is much higher in terms of the late 70s and 80s, if not higher than that. Again, it comes with amenities, and we'll talk more about that. But that is kind of the core use that we're talking about here. But in talking with the town of Plymouth officials, including the town manager and some select board members, folks wanted more than just a senior living community itself. So at the end of the day, we're actually proposing some mix of uses. So again, here's the site. You can see the old Benny's Plaza, the bigger building in back. That's going to be the location of our new senior living community. But as you get towards the front of the site, again, Piappi's Liquors will be staying. And we're looking at building a couple of two smaller buildings that'll be mixed use. So some residential over retail that'll be on Court Street. And I'll show you that in the middle. But also one thing that was made clear to us is bringing some real open space as well. So we're actually proposing some open space, a new gathering space in the middle of this site to really kind of create a mixed use project. So if I go forward, again, this is a preliminary early version of the plan, but you can see the senior housing building in the back of the site. And again, there's actually quite a bit of grade change in the site too as well. So when you're on Court Street, it slopes towards the back of the site too as well. So this kind of comes down. We're proposing a 3/4-story building. So the part of the building towards Nelson Street is actually 3 stories, and it kind of steps up to 4 stories on the right-hand side. And then if you look towards Court Street, again, I don't have a pointer. I don't think the laser up. Oh, I don't know. I think I'm too far away for the laser to work. So you can see Piappi's, which is kind of that building to the left. In the middle, you can see the open space. So the open space has 3 core components that we're envisioning right now. So one, there is a dog park. There's also pickleball courts. And then there's a lawn area that's meant to be really a gathering space, right? So that is publicly accessible open space. We'll be constructing it and maintaining it. And then you can see in the front where the old bank building is, and there's another building to the right. The idea is to have 2 3-story buildings with 2 stories of residential with ground floor retail. And obviously we'll have parking too as well. So the idea is to have this really kind of mixed use component up front with the senior living community towards the back. This just shows you a view from Nelson Street, right? So you can, I'm sorry, this is the view from Court Street, my apologies. Court Street, this is from Court Street. So this is the old, basically the, where the parking lot was, looking back towards the Benny's Plaza building was. You can see it's 3 stories on the left-hand side, 4 stories on the right-hand side. Very residential design character of the building, sloped roofs, pitched roofs, gable ends. And then the white ghosted building is intended to be that kind of mixed-use building that's on Court Street, you know, being residential and retail at the base of it. This is the view from Nelson Street. Again, it also slopes down, but you can see 3 stories on this side of the building, and then it steps up the other wing, steps up to 4 stories, but again, trying to lower the height as we get closer to Nelson Street, just to kind of give you a quick sense of that. And I'll actually go back. So there was, again, it was a short presentation. We are in the very beginning of our process. Our goal, obviously, we were very happy to be here jointly with the 2 boards. We are also working on a development agreement with the town of Plymouth as well. So that will, is beyond the permits itself, will define how this project works. We're also working with the town. There is a major drainage line that goes from this property that goes through the athletic club property that's behind us. We will be upgrading that drainage line too as well. There are definitely some drainage issues in and around the site. Again, we're really excited to bring a senior living community here to Plymouth. Again, the senior living communities, we love walkable neighborhoods. They want to be part of the neighborhood. And some, you know, key facts is about half the residents will come from a 15-minute drive radius, right? So most of these residents are coming already living in the town. The other big population is parents of adult children, right? So folks that are in their 50s or 60s and they have a parent who's up in their 80s type of thing. We were kind of joking. They're probably coming more for the grandchildren, not necessarily their children, but, again, they want to be close. So those are the two kind of key cohorts. Some folks may come farther afield, but again, this tends to be, people want to, it's part of us solving the housing crisis, but people want to be in the town that they've been in a long time. And so this is another opportunity for them to be here. So we're really excited. We are very fortunate to find this location and happy to take any kind of questions or comments.
I think the assistant town manager wanted to say some things before we move on to questions.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you additional context in that the communication that we've had thus far, this is a preliminary presentation to you. We have been engaged with this group. They are very interested and receptive to the feedback that they've given so far. I think that the plan you see, the proposal, this meets and aligns with a lot of the community planning goals that we've seen in a variety of the long-range plans. The comprehensive plan, climate adaptation, talking about greening up this space, meeting the needs of our seniors. It's an opportunity to provide additional capacity for people who want to age in place in this community, particularly in this type of environment where they can age across the spectrum of assisted and memory care facilities. And then in addition, we really gave the feedback that we wanted to see the streetscape enlivened. This particular site is right on the boundary line of North Plymouth and downtown Plymouth, a corridor area. So we thought, in addition to just the back of the site, what improvements could be made to meet additional needs in the community. We know there's a need for additional commercial space as well as diversifying our housing stock. So through a sort of a master site special permit process, you might be able to permit all of this, and that would include some level of inclusionary housing for rental above those commercial smaller buildings in the front that you see. So we really envision this as a multi-use opportunity. People can live, work, play, whatever those commercial spaces may be, whether it's, a restaurant use may not be out of the realm of possibility, but this is really the opportunity to come to you for feedback at this juncture. We have been working on drafting a development agreement that would then ultimately come to the select board for execution before they proceed with permitting through, in this case, the special permit granting authority would be the zoning board of appeals, but we would look for planning board, site plan review input for this process. So I just wanted to give you a little bit more background as to the town level of what's going on here, and I'll open it to feedback. Thank you.
Questions from the board, Mr. Canty?
So the main facility, I assume the residents or patients, whatever you would call them, the correct term, they wouldn't have vehicles, correct?
So it's a combination. So there's independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So memory care, obviously, no vehicles, right?
Okay.
Assisted living, they're allowed to, but I gotta be honest, the ratio is very low.
Okay.
And typically what happens is, someone might move in with a car. The
Yeah.
children tend to come to pick it up pretty quickly, right?
Okay.
Independent living, there will typically be residents that do drive still type of thing.
Okay.
Again, it's not a nursing home, right, to be really clear, right? But it's definitely people who, are definitely not looking to be in their homes anymore. They're looking more for a community. We have a commercial kitchen, so we're actually providing meals, 3 meals a day for the memory care, for the assisted living.
Yeah.
The independent living can get up to 3 meals a day, but sometimes they just take a meal a day, right? So it's kind of a hybrid, right? So this is not 55 plus living.
Okay.
It's much more amenity, intensive. We are staffed 24/7. Right? So there is a nurse on staff, but it's not a nursing home. Again, we don't have nursing care or anything like that.
Okay.
But helping people with their meds type of thing, that type of thing. So, but it's a highly amenitized kind of senior living community.
What's the breakdown of memory care versus assisted living versus independent living?
Yeah, so my eyes are not that good. So,
You have to, unfortunately have to be at the microphone. Can you come to the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 38 memory care units, 56.
Into the microphone, please.
Sorry. 38 memory care units, 56 assisted living, and 90 independent living. Even though I'm squinting. So the idea is, it's a smaller amount of memory care, but the whole idea is the assistant town manager was saying, really aging in place and providing a whole, pathway where they can have whatever care it is that they need. And just to further answer your question on the parking, so we plan for 0.7 parking spaces per unit.
In this facility, in the
Community. So the whole idea is all of the parking needs for all of the uses will be accommodated on our site.
at a 0.7 ratio?
Well, we would additionally have more spaces, right, for PIAPs. We would additionally have more spaces for the additional retail and residential. So
Okay.
I don't have the full parking count right now, but it would be, the whole idea is we would go through a process where everything would be parked on site. And that 0.7 units per, 0.7 spaces per unit, right? That accommodates also, there's 30 to 50 staff members working at any given time, and then also visitors. So really the biggest users of the parking are the people visiting, folks that are there, then the 30 to 50 staff that are there.
Well, if you could go back to the bird's eye view of, yeah. So with the 30 to 50 staff, the people going in and out of Piappi's, the mixed-use development, and the people living there, it does look like you don't have enough parking. I'm not a parking expert, but like Piappi's existing parking lot is being significantly curtailed. The two mixed-use buildings in the front, I don't know how many people are gonna live, how many bedrooms would be above those?
We're still working on that. I can tell you, so one, we're gonna go through the full process with the town, right? So we'll
Yeah.
be doing parking analysis, right? Both just for the uses independently. We definitely feel like we have more than sufficient parking. But that's something that we'll spend a lot of time on with the planning department and the ZBA and the town as we go through it. We've also done, again, this is more of a mixed-use project, right? So at night, as the retail dies down, there'll be less demand for that type of parking.
Yeah.
But our goal is to make sure that, as Seamus said, our goal is we want to make sure that we have more than sufficient parking on the site. So we're going to be going through that very thoroughly. We do have the ability to add some additional parking right now, but it will reduce some of the green space in certain areas. So that's something we're
Yeah.
just going to work carefully with the town on. But again, from our demand, pretty typically, we're going on 0.7 spaces per unit, and that works really well. But we will definitely work closely with the town on the retail and the residential that's in front.
Does
as well.
that 0.7 include the staff allotment?
Yeah, correct. Because again, the assisted living and memory care really don't generate any parking themselves, right? So it's really the
Sure.
independent living units.
And the
then
staff.
Yeah, and the staff, right, and visitors, right, type of thing.
Okay.
And again, that, we always assume as if all of our staff are driving too as well, not to say that there's some staff that are coming more locally or
Right.
carpooling, but
I understand.
But, we definitely, again, in our communities, we got to make sure that we have enough parking because we don't want people parking on the street, right? And obviously, we know Plymouth has constrained parking, particularly in the summer months. So we want to be really mindful of that too as well.
And you're still gonna be able to get in and out of the property on Nelson Street like you currently can?
Yep, correct. Yeah, so we have just, it's a secondary entrance. So we
Yep.
do have a driveway on there as there is today. And then we
Okay.
have the two entrances up front on Court Street as well as planned. Again, that would go through the local permitting process. We did meet with the fire department already. We do have full access around the senior housing building, but it is a fully modern, up-to-date code, fully sprinkled building. But we do make sure that we have access around the whole building too.
Okay. I guess and I assume you don't have any data yet on what the traffic impacts of this development would be on the area?
So we're actually just starting the traffic study now, right, type of thing. The
Okay.
good news, senior living as a traffic generator is one of the lower traffic generators at the end of the day, just
Okay.
because of it. But we do have a mixed-use component, which is good
Right.
now. Again, we know that Benny's has been vacant for some time or really underutilized. It's well below what a full shopping plaza would have been, but obviously
Yes.
it has not been as active recently. So,
Yes, but
yeah,
there's
we'll be-
other stressors moving into that area
Correct.
that are going to be adding to existing traffic conditions already.
Yeah. I think the good news is that, again, it is also meant to be, again, this is where the town has really asked us to really look at mixed use, right? So we do have a mix of uses, right, too, as well. So the good news is that, again, our residents have the ability to go to Piappi's or to the retail that's going to be added there, right?
Yep.
Same with our, employees, team members. It's a very walkable neighborhood too, which is great for our residents about being able to get out. So, again, the mixed use nature helps with that, type of thing. Some of our trips aren't leaving because they can, simply stay on site. But
I understand.
yeah, but again, we're just trying to make a vibrant place.
So will your traffic analysis take into account not just the impact on current existing conditions, but the impact on conditions that will exist once the 40B development down the street?
Correct. Typically with traffic studies, what we're required to do is that we'll reach out to the town to find out what else has been planned, right?
Okay.
So that make sure that's in the background growth too as well. So it's not just our project. We're looking, there's definitely standards, but again,
Right.
we'll do a robust traffic study with the town to go through it. So you guys will understand, the impact will be on what else has already been approved too as well.
Right.
So, and then it also includes general background growth beyond that, as we show our impacts at the end of the day.
Do you have a sense at this time when the traffic data itself will be collected?
So we always try to do it again while school's still in session. right? So
Okay.
that's really a key thing, right? So again, I think our goal is we actually are doing traffic counts now or really soon. So we don't do it, we're trying to do it around holidays, right? And, again, Plymouth's a little bit different, but we typically don't do it in the summer months because that's when schools are not in session type
Right.
of thing.
Right.
But we can obviously account for factors, but I think the goal is to do it in the next couple weeks, so.
Okay. I still have lingering concerns about the parking, but I'll look more into it as more
Yep.
comes available. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Thank you very much for this presentation. I really like this project, and I love the idea of having green open space in that part of town. I think that's going to be a community benefit that everyone can enjoy. So thank you for being so thoughtful and pulling this together. I just had two quick questions, just really curious. Does Next Core Group have any similar projects in Massachusetts?
No, so this would be, so again, we've been brought on to expand their footprint into Massachusetts,
Okay.
right? And so we are actively right now with the town of Arlington. We actually are on Arlington Town Meeting tomorrow night for 145 units. It's actually a piece of church land that was excess, so we're doing one there. We have actually 3 other sites that we're active in negotiations too as well. So again, it's kind of in that 140 to 200 unit range of the communities. ESL actively manages over 25 communities already in the United States, right? So they're a known entity, and their executive staff have been in the business for over 30 years.
Okay, great, thank you. And then what would your timeline be?
So again, post permits and approvals, right? So again, that would, we would go through the process with the town. But once we're fully permitted and approved, the building will probably, like the community and the mixed use would probably take about 24 months from start to finish.
Okay, great.
So.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
So when I'm looking at the rendering, and you spoke of the other building to the left.
Yep.
There, are you proposing to build these buildings? Are these something that maybe Lauren might be able to answer? Are these something that you're going to build or someone else is going to build, or
No, I
is
can
this part
definitely-
of the overall projects?
Yeah, so I think our commitment is first is we're going to take the whole project through permits and approvals.
Okay.
Okay, and then our goal is that we're going to build the open space, the senior living community, all the roadways and the parking.
Yep.
We will be looking, so again, ESL, their business is not these smaller buildings, right, that are out front, right? So we'll be talking with local developers, or potentially could be ourselves, of actually building those at the same time.
And where do you see the use of those?
So probably a couple stories of residential, like apartments, above a ground floor retail component
Down for retail.
Yep.
For those 2 buildings,
for those 2 buildings. And
Where
then
the
and
bank
Piappi's
is.
will continue to remain,
where Baybanks is and where.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, so when going back to the rendering, you see a significant amount of, there's some green space there. The other rendering, the site.
Yep,
You'll see the dog park and the pickleball.
yep.
And obviously, there's a turnaround where you're coming into the main entrance there. There's about, I was just quickly getting the numbers from you. It looked like there was 184 units for the Benny's building, I'll call
Yep,
it, the
correct.
Benny's building. And 0.7 parking.
Per unit.
Yeah, how many parking spaces am I looking at now? Do you know what's on there now? Because I just want to compare and contrast. I'm being shown the green space.
Yeah, correct.
Am I really going to get that green space? Meaning
For sure. I mean,
that,
that
is it-
you're asking the correct question, right? That there's all about finding the right balance of providing as much parking while also providing as much green space as we possibly need. So that's what, our design, our interactions with the town over the coming months is going to be all about. But so.
How many are on that?
It's going to be 130 spaces, right, just for the senior living community.
Yep.
And then I don't
That's-
have the specific number, so there's going to be, many spaces continuing for Piappi's and then also for the retail. But we're going to comply with every parking requirement
I
that the
understand
town
that. I
has.
just want to know what I'm looking at tonight. There is, how many, I know that, I'm getting a count over there, like there's maybe 10 spaces in front of Piappi's from my distance. I'm looking at the. I
Yeah,
didn't get a
correct. And then
copy of this.
11, I can provide you with
Yeah.
a breakdown of
So,
parking.
but I'm just, I'm just trying to get a handle on what I'm looking at in terms of the number of parking spaces that you will pursue based on this drawing and what I'm seeing for the open space component, which is pickleball and tennis. So I just wanted to know, no one really has a number right now on that rendering to tell me how many, you need 130, some 34, but we don't know how many's on this plan I'm looking at. That was my point.
Yeah, so we can definitely get, so we have we definitely know the full, it's, again, it escapes me right now, but we know what the full parking count is, and our commitment is to build that amount of open space, right? We're very confident with the parking levels from our perspective.
Right.
We obviously have to make sure the town of Plymouth is confident. There are other areas we could probably add some additional parking, not touching that center green
Yeah.
space, because to us, that center green space is very important, right? It's not just for the neighborhood, but also even for our community of
Right.
the pickleball dog park and that lawn area where there could be like small events and everything, that's really important.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just trying to see how achievable of what I'm looking at right now, how achievable is it based on the 0.7 and the number of parking spaces? That's
So-
what I just
yeah,
was trying
so-
to get at.
Very achievable, because
Okay.
we're comfortable with the amount of parking we have. But subject to further discussions,
So
obviously.
what, the Bay Banks building and the entrance building, those two buildings, how many parking spaces are you going to need for that? On top of the 134 you need for?
Yeah, so we'll work
How many-
obviously with the planning office, but we'll be looking at the ratios that are required,
Yeah.
but
So it will be dependent on the uses. So our use table requires certain ratio for certain commercial uses and a different breakdown for the types of residential. For example, 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom, there will be different ratios. So once we have more clarity in the detail of that plan moving forward, we'll be able to answer that specific question.
I mean, I like the mom and pop operation in that downtown where you have street front businesses and then someone living above it. That's very typical of what you see in downtown Plymouth. So I like where you're gravitating on the frontage. I just wanted to make sure that you say that you're going to make sure that all the parking is on site. And you'll work through the planning board and town staff to achieve that. I just wanted to make sure we are going to get a level of buffering from Nelson Street and in other locations from that angle. The other thing I wanted to know is on, maybe Lauren can, it says, do you see special permits being requested? What kind of permitting process are they looking at?
Yes, so both the senior living facility use as well as the mixed-use components would require special permit use.
Yep.
So the recommendation from planning staff is that they come for one special permit for the entire site. The development agreement that will come before the select board will lay out the expectations of what the process would entail and what the development site would encompass. And then the special permit would control the whole site. As you've already heard, that there may be an interest in having the development team that you see before you tonight, getting the two front buildings pad ready. But they would do the special permitting for the whole site. Everything would be controlled by the special permit. Any deviations from that would require to come back and modify that. And if they so choose, they can then divide off that front parcel to convey to a local developer to then take from pad ready to actual build out of what's been permitted.
Okay, and do you see the number of the affordable units? We are looking at building market-priced housing.
So any residential development in town that is 5 or more residential units triggers inclusionary housing, with
Okay.
the minimum of 10% that you would need to either build on in the project, or there's the payment in lieu option. That said, we're anticipating these to be on-site. Without a full count of how many units will be above these, we don't know, but I know it will be more than 5, just at the scale of
But
the
at
footprint.
184 for the Benny's building, and not knowing how many bedrooms might be in the front two buildings, we're looking at a significant amount of affordable units.
So the senior living component will not have
Okay.
will not be involved in inclusionary housing.
Okay,
That said, any residential units above the two mixed-use parcels in the front, they're approximately between ballpark 4,000 to 4,500 square feet of footprint. So on a second and third floor above those would be potential for residential
so the
dwelling.
10% will only be to the front buildings?
Correct.
Not the back buildings?
Correct.
So we're not going to get, so we're looking at a smaller number of affordable units?
I didn't hear the last.
We're looking at a smaller number of affordable units based on, those two front buildings, how many could possibly hold?
Correct. So, let's
not
just,
too
let's
many.
ballpark here and
Yeah.
say there's 15 residential apartments between the two buildings.
Yeah,
At 10%, you're looking at 1.5, so we round up to 2, be 2 units.
so 2 units would be affordable.
Right, at the minimum, there's,
All right.
we can have a discussion as to
Yep.
whether they want to entail more than 10%, but that's not a discussion that we've had yet.
Okay, and the only other thing I just wanted to The site, obviously, where Benny's was located, was built on a slab. And there was a lot of construction at the time to keep that slab steady, because that area, if you look at photographs from, there's some pretty significant aerial photos of this in the prior to Benny's, and you'll see there's a pond back there. Many locals will say they skated back there, so there's a significant amount of water in this site. Has there been any, you have any reservations about the stability of the land for a four-story building, and how tall would that make it be? How tall would that be?
So
With the
I'm gonna go
gables.
to the height first.
Yeah, so the height.
All right.
Back here. On the 4 stories, I believe the height is somewhere, we're still figuring it all out right now.
Yeah.
So this is all very preliminary, but I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 60 feet
60 feet, okay.
of the height of the 4 stories.
All right,
And to your, I think what you're getting at, there's no basement, so this would continue to be a slab.
Yeah.
And understanding that, the
If there was a
concerns.
basement, you'd have the, kind of a pool in there.
No basement.
That might be a swimming.
Correct.
All right,
Yeah.
and just out on the road, if you go back to the front.
Yep.
Entrance, across the street, there's Cold Spring.
Yep.
And there's a pond back there, and water's running under the road and running through this parking lot. And to the left of that, you'll actually see a horse trough. If you look by the Benny sign, there's a cement horse trough where there was once a fountain where water used to come up of. You used to walk by and there'd be water coming out of a fountain there. So I just, keep an eye on that horse trough.
No, it's a,
It has, oh, so, sorry, you can't hear me, someone's yelling from the back. I was just saying that, that the site is, across the street from Cold Spring, and there's a pond back there, and there's water running under the site, and on the street, there is a horse trough, replica of a fountain that was once there, so keep an eye on that.
I'll definitely keep an eye out for it. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, there's a little historic little horse trough out front. It's a dysfunctional, it once did produce water, but it's no longer doing that. But I just keep an eye on that as you move forward. I look forward to hearing more as this process
great.
moves along. But I would like to see some effort made on the affordable housing side of the equation. I think that this is nice to see that we're accommodating different demographics, aging in place and being a safe place and living in the community that they've are familiar with. But those people living in this community, there's an affordability that makes it possible for them to experience what you're describing. So affordability is something that I would like. I'm looking forward to seeing what your possibilities are. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Could you go back to the slide that has all the words on it? So I saw that there's about 150 jobs created by this. Could you describe what some of those jobs might be?
Yeah, so again, we have, basically we have staff 24/7, right? So there's probably, on average, probably between 30 and 40 people on any given shift. And then we also have just general office type staff too, marketing folks, general manager, that type of stuff. We also have nursing positions. We have medical assistants type of thing. Again, not a nursing home, right? But these are people that do need assistance with activities of daily life type of thing. So it's a pretty broad range. So we do, and we do generate quite a few jobs, right? Some of them, a lot of them are full-time, some of them are part-time. Again, it depends on how the community gets staffed type of thing. But again, going back to it, we have basically a commercial kitchen, right? So we also have kitchen staff, right? We have chefs, people are serving, again, 3 meals a day in the memory care and the assisted living. And again, the independent living dining room also gets 3 meals a day, just not everyone takes them, right? So it's more people's preference as to what they want to do at that point type of thing. So, but yeah, pretty robust amenities. The hair salon might be one of the most popular ones in these buildings too as well. But we bring in outside hairstylists that come in too as well. Again, it's really meant to be a really robust living at the aging in place.
So it runs the gamut from service to licensed professional
Correct.
to administrative
Correct.
type staff.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's a lot of our staff, again, to be able to work in this community, a lot of them do come locally too as well, because again, the convenience of being able to work in a senior living community in their hometown is great, especially for those that have families type of thing, or have been in the industry for a while rather than commuting somewhere else. Again, the other thing that's really advantageous too is that these are senior, again, not a nursing home, but if something does happen, we have trained medical professions on staff 24/7. And then when the fire department is, calling, there's someone trained on the other end of the line that's receiving that phone call too as well. So, but it's a very mix of, job, that actually are created here.
Okay. And obviously the mixed-use buildings. With the
Correct.
Commercial space would create additional jobs beyond the 150 that you are talking about for your
Correct.
operation.
Yeah,
So, I
no.
mean, this could be a huge economic driver for the town.
Absolutely, and we're really excited. The open space too, again, it's not just an amenity, becomes a gathering space, right, too, as well. It's gonna help the retail spaces in front too as well to lease, right? And just our residents, it's like their front porch, right, type of thing, but it's public, right? It's open to everyone, right? But we also will be likely planning events in that open space area, right? That'll be for everyone too as well. And so, again, and one thing we found too is that the number of dogs and pets have increased dramatically in our buildings too as well, right? And in the first place they're looking for, where can they go? And having the dog park, right, that's like a community gathering spot as well too. So again, that's what HOM really loves doing, is creating these kind of mixed use places, but it's not meant to be big. It's meant to be like a neighborhood gathering spot, and that's going to really help from our perspective.
Well, thank you. I know we're in the concept phase at this point in time, but conceptually, I'm in favor of the project that we've been describing here tonight. Mr. Quintel?
Thank you, David. I want to say to everybody, this wasn't my first choice. I still think, this could have been a very valuable parcel to the town 10 years down the road. But that being said, it doesn't belong to me, and I have to say that these firms have been very cooperative to work with. We've had, I don't know how many meetings, several anyway. David, you were there for one of them, two of them, and Lauren and Derek. And when we asked them to go back and you create more green space, more trees, climate resiliency, cool living, they did absolutely that. They came back. So I have to say, very happy with it, and I hope it's very successful. And we need to clean up that site, the old Grant site and First National, then Benny's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinto. I'll pass things over to Mr. Bolton and the planning board.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to questions first from my board to see anyone questions. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So really, I think the select board has covered the majority of my questions. I'm really interested in the parking, as Mr. Kean definitely delved into in depth, and I'm looking forward to seeing the actual count. The other aspects I'm interested in is I'm looking forward to seeing how you're going to manage groundwater there. Because as we all know now, it is very close to the surface. And I'm also curious if you could just maybe educate me a little more on the dog park and the pickleball. Because my first question was, are the residents allowed to have dogs? And apparently they are. So
Yes.
you've answered that question as well. But I know, though, that and many people are somewhat sensitive to the noise of pickleball. And I wonder if you had any plans for attenuating that in any way or anything like that.
Yes, well, so two things. So one, residents are allowed to have dogs. And that actually has become even more popular in recent years, which is great. And then, honestly, for the pickleball, again, we can definitely have a discussion more about what the use of that space is too. Well, we can tell you that our independent living residents love pickleball, right? Again, it's also in the middle of the complex, right, type of thing. This is really kind of a daytime use type of thing versus not an evening type use or night use. So we're not, and again, remember, we have our community right next to it, right, even closer. So the noise is definitely not a concern. We think people would really treat it as an amenity type of thing, at least from that perspective. We have done our geotechnical analysis, our environmental analysis on the site. Again, part of the reason why we're working with the town at our cost to upgrade the drainage line that leaves the site is particularly to help just deal with some existing drainage issues. But again, no, we don't, again, the other question was just asked about, what's underneath, right, and everything. There's actually uplift and other kind of concerns. The answer is we think from an engineering perspective, we're going to be fine, type of thing. And so I think also we are substantially increasing the amount of open space on the site too, as well as today, it's a very large paved area. And so that'll actually help some mitigate the issues. But we have to be up to modern codes for infiltration and that type of stuff as well.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I like the proposal very much. Did you look at increasing the buffer to the adjacent properties, the butters?
Yeah, definitely And again, if we go back to the plan, again, the goal was for the main building was really to push it down towards the back as far as we could, right? And still maintain fire lane access around the building, right? So we pushed it about as far as we can. We also, again, there is wetlands, as you guys know, right off of our property too as well. Now, again, a lot of it's disturbed right up to it, but the idea was just to try to place the building. It's also why we also went to a 3 to a 4-story building, right? And so the idea was stepping, in advance the building, so it's stepping down to Nelson Street, right? Now, Nelson Street also, it kind of climbs back up to Nelson Street too as well. Again, Piappi's is staying, and again, the idea was to have the open space in the middle. So, I mean, that was kind of our strategy, and again, the building is pushed more towards the athletic club property and the boat storage, if anything, and so that's what we were trying to look at in terms of trying to position it at the end of the day.
And I understand about the high water table, but did you look at putting any of the parking under the building, even if it's at grade and then the building up higher?
Yeah, it's just significant costs, right, at the end of the day. And again, as you already said, like, we are literally right close to the groundwater, right, type of thing. So again, that cost would be very expensive for us, which would make it more challenging for us as a development. And so we thought, again, given, again, if I go to the plan, we definitely felt like we were able to accommodate parking, but also add some pretty robust open space and buffers as well, which some of them don't exist today. And some of the paving, as you know, goes right to the edge of the property line.
Right,
So,
right.
again, we look forward to working with the planning board and the ZBA as we go through this, really trying to balance, those of, parking demand, right, as well as open space demand. And but we believe we have the right balance, but it's on us to prove it out to you guys as we go through it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Mann?
Thank you. Yes, it's been very comprehensive, the questions, and I still have a few. What is the total acreage of the property?
Oh, hard questions. 7 acres? About 7 acres, about.
And how large is what you call open space?
I would have to get back to you to get the exact calculation. I don't think I have that on me. I don't think we have that, but we can definitely get that to you.
And how are you defining open space?
Well, there's two things. There's the main area that's usable, like this 3-component park in the middle. That's, first we would call that open space, like, active open space. But obviously there's also a lot of buffer zones and other things that are just, grass, lawn area and trees. So we can come back both with the calculation of just what is this middle open space that we're talking about, and then just generally what is general open space coverage outside of that.
So also, have you considered pervious parking that, allows, natural drainage through?
So we have, not necessarily with this project as a developer, we have definitely done that with sidewalks before, right? It's really hard to maintain and drive areas and parking areas just because of the sand and everything else. We can definitely have conversations about that, but we haven't had a discussion about this project yet specifically, but we have done sidewalks quite extensively. It's easier to maintain and to keep the porousness.
So one of the closest elements of open space and green corridors in the area is the Seaside Trail, which is along the old rail trail directly behind you, between you and the water, essentially. And a lot of time and effort and money has been put into developing that. And it would seem to me amiss if you didn't find a way to direct or access that as best possible. Because people do move along that parallel to your building, but they should probably come up Nelson, or potentially through the property that abuts the boatyard or whatever, because that also would, I believe, directly access this Seaside Trail. That it's really a wonderful development that goes all the way from essentially, the waterfront all the way to Cordage Park, and it really gets intense use. And in a lot of ways, one of the things that's happening across the town is we're trying to link up all of our green spaces and make sure people can, as you were saying, in terms of why this site might be more utilized, be accessible to other people for those purposes. And bring more people into Piappi's or other, I'm not sure people come knocking on the door of the assisted living facility, seeing if you got any space, but it really should be not missed, I would say.
Great comment.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. So I know that Mr. Goldman's going to open this up to some public comment as well. Obviously, this is, as has been expressed, this is a very preliminary, this is the opening stages. This is the conceptual, this is to let the community know what, in the background, some of your elected officials, most notably your select board members, have been told regarding this as they've started to negotiate a development agreement. The planning board, just so you know, is planning on continuing these dialogues. And in fact, the proposal that we're putting out is that there be a joint meeting with the planning board and both the downtown and North Plymouth steering committees. So all of us together to have an opportunity to all sit down together, hear further presentations, and bounce ideas amongst each other with the developer there to come up with the best project that fits in this neighborhood. So just to make sure that people understand, so this is not a nonprofit entity. This is a
Correct.
commercial entity that will be paying property tax on,
Correct.
on this, as well as business personal property with respect to medical equipment and the like. So it's a tax generator for the community.
Yes.
So as we talk further about our economic development in town, one of the things that we've talked about has been to find uses that generate income, that provide living wage jobs, that fit with the character of our community, and that provide services for our residents. This seems like a pretty good fit when it comes to all of those things. As someone who sat on the senior task force and worked to get our age and dementia-friendly designations, we talked to a lot of our seniors and did an entire needs study. And one of the big needs that our seniors said that they wanted in this town was a facility or community or a village in which they can age in place. And that meant including independent, assisted, and even more significant memory care type units. And we don't have a lot of those in Plymouth. And I want to commend the proponent here because they're talking about doing this in a downtown area, in an area where you're not taking seniors and pushing them off to the side and putting them out in the rural area and good luck with them ever running into another resident somewhere. But no, literally opening their front door, bringing that gate and putting that common space together where the residents are going to be coming into contact with the rest of the community on a regular basis. True incorporation. It was one of the things we talked about that this board, as well as others, talked about when we talked about the Grantham project in Red Brook. Again, a senior facility right on a common. This is even better in a sense because this is a senior facility creating a common in another neighborhood. I know that the neighbors in North Plymouth and downtown are very welcoming people, and that this will be a community that will truly enjoy having all of those neighbors with them. So hopefully this is something that we can come to a good, positive result for the entire community. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cohen, are you?
No, just, I was glad that Mr. Mann brought up the Seaside Rail Trail, and obviously you have a nice connector on Nelson Street. Obviously, we don't have direct access from the back. That's the Cold Spring Club. But I think that, the elements of connecting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking closer. Is that better? I get yelled at when no one can hear anybody here unless you're talking.
Folks, there are also plenty of seats in the front row.
Yeah. But I'm glad that people are thinking about that and how Nelson Street might play a role and how Court Street might play a role in terms of the public accessibility. I think that's important, that when you talk about that the entire neighborhood is welcomed to visit the site, that this open space is available to not only the residents, but the people that are going and doing business there or just stopping by as they make their way to the Cape Cod Seaside Rail Trail. So I'm glad people are thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Canty?
So I would agree with Mr. Bolton to an extent that the people of North Plymouth are a welcoming bunch. But we've already been forced to welcome a lot of people recently that we weren't looking to welcome into that area. And that area, that other development, the Pulte development, was very stingy with their parking allotment. And a lot of the residents believe that the parking for that development and their guests is going to be discharged onto residential streets that are already narrow. So the reason I centered in on your parking requirement in particular, being right down the street from that, is I do think you are going to face a high level of scrutiny over your parking. And I understand providing the green spaces is a benefit. You're eating into an existing parking lot to do that. But just be aware that you are likely to face a significant amount of justified scrutiny for that because of the sentiment in the area at the moment.
Well, no, first of all, appreciate the heads up on it. I mean, something was already brought up to us from the town of Plymouth, just parking in general. But yeah, no, we will come back with detailed numbers and, based upon the uses so that you guys can evaluate and the neighborhoods can evaluate. I mean, again, our goal is to provide the, not just the right amount of parking, but make sure there's some buffer too. We don't want it spilling out. But yeah, we look forward to that discussion.
Thank you.
I do know there are some members of the public here. Would anyone like to speak? Mrs. Adelman?
I understand that the 10% inclusive housing doesn't apply to the senior living. And we want our seniors to be able to live within the community. How affordable will this senior living be for our seniors?
Pat, can you just introduce yourself for the record, please?
Pardon?
Can you just introduce yourself for the
Oh,
record,
I'm
please?
sorry. Pat Adelman, Precinct 12.
Thank you. We'll come back to you folks if you want to answer these questions later. Is there anyone else from the community? Please introduce yourself when you come to the microphone. Come to you next, Mr. Malaguti.
Paul Blanchard from Precinct 13. Some of you may know I've been involved in a number of multi-use developments around southern New England myself in my career, but I'm very much in favor of this as a project, as a general concept, partially because we've seen enough of acreage of forests destroyed to build developments. And this is a case of a reuse of an existing previously developed site, which I think is exactly the kind of development that Plymouth should be encouraging. I was pleased to hear, because one of my questions was going to be, was this a nonprofit operation? And I'm very pleased to hear that that's not the case, because that would be kind of detrimental to the whole process of trying to improve the tax structure. I have only one kind of general comment, and that is that in looking at the site plan, this whole section of Court Street on both sides, there's mostly some green space in front of the buildings. And the two smaller buildings proposed on Court Street have virtually no green space kind of separating them from the sidewalk to speak of. And I would just like to throw that out as something to keep in mind as things are developed, because that's not the way the rest of Court Street is in that area. It is the way that site is now, but it certainly would benefit greatly from a little bit of more of a setback in green space along Court Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malaguti?
Thank you, Everett Malaguti, Vice Chair of the North Plymouth Steering Committee and a resident of Precinct 2. Thank you, Mr. Bulletin, for your comments stating that you want to have a joint meeting with both of the steering committees on the planning board. And I'm glad that was brought up, because I remember the last time when this site came up that the Plymouth Center Steering Committee was sort of left out of that discussion. Most of that was the contentious meeting in North Plymouth for that discussion on that property, along with us coming off of another contentious development project not that long ago. So that's one thing that I'd like for the proposed developers to come to the table with, that we have been under a lot of pressure in North Plymouth recently, and all wounds have not healed yet. So we just want to say that we're going to listen, but just bear in mind that the residents have been sort of torn in multiple facets on these types of developments. But I will welcome it in open arms for the discussion to look at what parameters we can look at for bettering not just the site, but also the ability for North Plymouth and the downtown area to thrive. A couple questions that I have, though, is I know you're talking about the traffic count and you're looking at that while school's in session, but you're also bordering on a major area for tourism as well too, since you have Nelson Park, which is a very busy area, not just for the residents, but a lot of out-of-towners come and visit the park, causing a lot of traffic strains on Nelson Street. And another thing about parking is the small parking area that abuts Nelson right now is utilized by a lot of the neighbors in Nelson because they have very inadequate parking for the amount of vehicles and residents that basically reside in that area, and they use that. And I'm not saying to include parking there for them, but I just want you to be aware of those concerns that you could be displacing up to 20 vehicles that currently use that area for their extra parking that they can't fit on their own lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malaguti. Is there anyone else? Please introduce yourself when you come to the microphone.
Paul Leonard, I live at 19 Nelson Street.
Can you
just
start over, Paul?
Adjacent
Can you
to
start
the
over?
property. I'm sorry?
Could you start over?
Oh,
and
sure.
do it in the
Paul
microphone?
Leonard, 19 Nelson Street, Plymouth, Mass.
Thank you.
I live just to that little notch up there in the upper left corner of the development. Now, this building, I understand completely you need to make a profit on what you're doing, and that in order to do that, it looks likely that you're going to need 4 stories. Now, there is practically nothing in that vicinity that is 4 stories high. So it's going to become an overwhelming giant to that particular area. Also, the fact that it is not amenable to shopping, travel, et cetera. I think you may be underestimating the need for vehicles by the people that are going to be living there, because practically everyone who lives in the neighborhood has at least 1, if not 2 or more cars. So I think you'll find that people coming there to visit, people living there, are going to require more parking than you may be anticipating. And although I love that you're making a dog park, as they have pointed out, we have the rail trail. We have people that currently come from all parts of the town, and if they can't park there, they will park in that lot and walk down to the rail trail to use it, to utilize for summer visits to the water or to go for a walk down along the rail trail. So ever since Benny's has gone out, that parking lot has seen probably as much use as when it was in business. So I think you may be underestimating what your requirements are going to be and the impact it'll have on people in the neighborhood. Also, the fact the 4 stories, there is nothing that is going to even come close to that until you get probably down to the new condos down on Water Street. Is going to be the closest thing. So that's sort of going to become overwhelming to anything in the area as far as when you look out your window, that's what you're going to see is this monster of a housing facility. So those are my concerns. I think you've been fair in looking at what your options are. I understand you're looking to put in a property where you can make some money, where it'll be satisfactory to the town, but I think there are still some more aspects that need address.
Anyone else from the public? Mr. Balboni? If you could just introduce yourself when you get to the microphone.
Peter Balboni, life resident of Plymouth, owner of Pioppi's Package Store. It's almost been 9 years since Benny's is gone, and it's a real eyesore down there. We look forward to this project. There are many concerns. Basically, the parking, as everybody has mentioned here, that is a big concern. We have a tremendous amount of traffic come in and out, but I look forward working with the developers and working with the town, and I'm sure we can all find something that makes everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? Is there anyone online, Jade? Excellent, thank you. I don't know if you folks want to address any of the comments, concerns, questions that came up, but we'll happily give you the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so I'll just keep it brief. One, I mean, again, as you noted, this is the first stop, right, type of thing. And so we definitely are looking forward to meeting with the steering committees. We're happy to meet with smaller groups too as well. I mean, the bigger meeting is great, but we're also happy to do smaller one-on-one meetings to go through it. Again, we talked about parking quite a bit, and so I think that's on us to prove out. Again, on the height and everything else, again, we are stepping the building from 3 to 4 stories, not comments notwithstanding, right? We understand this is a larger building type of thing. But we do think it brings a lot to the town of Plymouth, right? And then also the mixed-use nature. So, again, this is a market rate-based, community, right? And so affordability, we're happy to have more conversations about. Senior housing does not require affordable housing right now in town. So, but we can have more conversations about that too as well. But, again, it's definitely, we've been, meeting with town officials for a little bit of time, but there's definitely a lot of push and pull here, right? Open space, parking, the needs of the community. And so we look forward to having those conversations as we go forward. So we're really excited to be here, to be honest. This is, again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier with a few folks, senior housing has definitely changed from being out in the backwoods on some isolated area. Our residents want to be in a walkable community, and that it's usually the community they're already in. And so they can't be in their homes anymore. They want to go somewhere else. And so we're excited about this. And we understand that Plymouth has other goals with the mixed use and the open space. So we're excited. And this is meant to be a new neighborhood park. So I don't want to call it branded, but it'll be a place, right? That'll be on, the open space network. So people know that they can come here type of thing. And that's what our seniors are going to love too, because they're going to be, like you said, they're going to be outside interacting with the town they're already a part of. So, but yeah, we look forward to having further discussions on all these topics and, appreciate your guys' time tonight, honestly.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, any final thoughts? Oh, sure. Come on up. Could you introduce yourself, Kathy?
Kathy Dunn, Precinct 4, Town Meeting Member. I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Trust and past chair. I would just welcome you to come and meet with us at the Affordable Housing Trust and explain your project, and we'll explain what we can do for you if you are willing to consider some affordable housing. So I'd be very excited about this project if it did include some affordable housing, which we need desperately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. I will note, if we are talking about 15 units, that'd be 2 affordables, only 2 more, and we could get the credit for all of the units in the building at 25%. So perhaps that's something we can discuss as the project's moving forward.
I think that's there's a lot to discuss, and there are already preliminary discussions regarding those units up front, the non-senior. So we're looking at that. Ms. Dunn, thank you. I think that approaching the Affordable Housing Trust and trying to come together with somebody is a great idea. Ultimately, this, again, just to remind people, this is still something in its infancy. We don't have developers or plans specifically for any of this beyond the rough for the senior facility. So we're going to be working with that. The planning board is going to be intimately involved. We are very, very cognizant of parking and traffic. It's something that the planning board spends a great deal of time on every time someone comes before us. Mr. Canty, you're more than welcome to come to our meetings and speak to your heart's content for 3 minutes. But we will be addressing this. We have never shirked that when it comes to our responsibility and our role as a board in making sure that anything that gets built fits with our community. And that's a real challenge when we are talking about larger buildings. And yes, when we're talking about reuse of something as large as a 7-acre parcel, as right now as much of a concrete island as it is in the middle of our green space downtown, close to our rail trail, it's important that we make this fit within our community. So I look forward to a lot more discussions and making sure that everyone's voice is heard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen?
Microphone. So Ms. Dunn makes a very good point that there, and I think this really does eventually go back to the proposal in the petitioners with this concept, but it does go back to staff to think about opportunities where we can engage them, as Mr. Golden has indicated. If we were to get a number of more units of affordable, that would allow us to take greater credit for the site with the Housing Trust and its abilities to help developer buy down some of the units so we can get them deed restricted as affordable. That might be a way. I see your hand is raising.
Just a point of clarity, if these units are rental units, meeting 25% of
Yep.
those as deed restricted affordable would allow us to account all of the units. If they are condominium ownership units, that is not the case, just a point of clarity.
That's good to know. So as we start moving forward out front, keeping those things in mind, at least we can get closer to that affordable housing number to address the possibility of another unfriendly 40B in Plymouth. So anything we can do on that end is helpful. And again, anything you can do to save the little horse trough. And I'm looking at the site on your southern boundary. You can see how the property is angled. That's the remnants of a railroad line, the Derby line, that used to leave downtown Plymouth and head out to Middleborough. There were tracks there in that parking lot up until recently, so when you dig up over there, you might run into them. But there was a train track that ran through your parking lot called the Derby line. But anyways, I can't encourage enough working with the neighborhood. I like how you've advocating to reach out to the neighborhood, into staff, into the planning board. So I look forward to seeing what the final results is. Thank you.
Well, thank you folks for being here tonight. We appreciate the information sharing. I think you've got some good feedback from both the elected officials here and from the public as well. We look forward to seeing the next phase of the project move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll go to the zoning bylaw modernization presentation, which will be given by our new assistant town manager, Lauren Lind.
Good evening, everyone. There's some documents being passed around, and I just want to note, it's not new information. I'm going to hold up, if you've seen Chapter 12 of the Comprehensive Plan that was adopted in March, it's the implementation chapter. It's just in a new format so that you can now see the pieces that are orange are highlighted for your information tonight, and it's just a different landscape layout. But like I said, not new information. You've seen this already in the implementation chapter of the comprehensive plan. So tonight I'm here to talk about the concept of zoning modernization. It's something that we've been discussing, and it's been really brought to light through the new comprehensive plan. So I'm just going to dive right in. Thank you. So the implementation section of the plan, there are a series of elements including economy, housing, environment, and climate, which touches on natural resources and sustainability and resilience. It's mobility, history, culture, and community, public facilities and services, land use, and implementation. In total, in the matrix that you have before you, there are 82 strategies, and 17 of those, at least 17 of those, will involve zoning amendments in some capacity. So again, this is just an example of the image of the matrix before you. Those columns highlighted in orange are the zoning-related items. I'm not going to go through this in painstaking detail, as I just mentioned. It's a lengthy couple of pages there. But I want to sort of highlight some high-level thinking about what zoning modernization entails. And first, we think about housekeeping. That's really just compliance and cleanup, updating things to align with modifications to state law, removing things that are obsolete, errors, inconsistencies, and also updating definitions and terminology that, may have been a term of art in 1955 when zoning was introduced to Plymouth, but now in 2026, it's time to update. The good news here is that annual town meeting at just a few weeks ago approved funding for the codification of the zoning bylaws that will allow us to proceed with reorganizing this into an accessible online format, and it will begin to flag some of the items that are inconsistent that need this cleaning up. The next level of this is really policy changes. And I've categorized these into a couple of buckets that's like use regulations, thinking about what is allowed and where, adding new use categories, whether it's different types of residential use, mixed use facilities, revising the use tables and what is allowed. Currently, our use table of regulations doesn't reference mixed use at all. It does come up in the dimensional tables, but this is something that we see very frequently and that it's a need in the community. It's a core concept of smart growth, and it's not currently defined in our use table. And then also shifting uses to, by right, which is you can walk in and if you're allowed in that district by right, you go to the building department and you can go through permitting. Whereas if it's a special permit process that requires a public hearing, a lengthier time. So in some areas, there may be things that require a special permit that may not be necessary, or there may be an in-between where we can have a use that is just requiring site plan review, which is again, whether that be administrative at a staff level or through the planning board, having that opportunity for you to have input on it, but not necessarily the special permit process, which is a very high standard. We can also talk about changes to dimensional form and standards, whether it be density, height, setbacks, lot coverage, things of that nature. Talking about zoning districts, either creating new ones, modifying ones that exist, or introducing overlays. And then process and administration, that's talking about permitting pathways, streamlining permitting, and then the review standards in which those go into. Some subject area tools that I'm calling them. These are really focusing on what I've been hearing in the community and what you've all been talking about, and that's really thinking about housing, economic development, and sustainability and resilience. And so there are, for example, housing, inclusionary zoning. We already have that in our bylaw, but there's an opportunity. This is, again, several years old, over a decade. It's an opportunity to take a look at what we have. Is it working? Are there things that we can do to modify it to make it more effective, or to incentivize further, deep into affordability for the type of housing that our community needs? Looking at diverse housing types, so often our community is dominated by single-family use. Multifamily is allowed under certain circumstances by special permit. Are there opportunities for, sometimes you'll hear it called the missing middle. It doesn't have to be very high-density residential. There are other opportunities for diverse housing that we know this community needs. Economic development, thinking about supporting commercial and industrial growth, whether that be, again, streamlined permitting, flexible uses, looking at where is appropriate. We have existing industrial areas. I've heard this termed as, it's like an old growth forest. We're not going to really fashion any new industrial areas, but what of these industrial areas that we have, are there things that are outdated? Are there things that we haven't thought of? We hear, the Blue Future Economy Conference happens every year in Plymouth, and there are a lot of great revolutionary ideas that come of that. We know there's industries that are growing, but we may not have sections of our bylaw that address those industries. So is that limiting growth? Is it driving potential companies that would be interested in either starting or growing in Plymouth elsewhere because we can't accommodate them? So looking at what, we actually are working on industrial zoning right now to take a look at what we have and what opportunities might be present. And then sustainability and resilience. And that's everything from energy efficiency, climate resilience, looking at open space preservation planning, and all sorts of environmental aspects. So the point tonight really is to get the select and planning board together to give staff some clear direction about some of these policy items. As I've just mentioned, there's at least 17 items in the comprehensive plan that flag need for zoning modernization. And while we'd love to do it all at once, it's just not in the realm of reality. So we'd like to get some feedback from you. I know there have been conversations with the select board recently. The planning board will be discussing zoning further in our coming meetings. Just an opportunity to get you together to give some feedback. So really, I kind of have some discussion questions here for you to start the conversation. And that's thinking about priority and trade-offs, what specific areas and topics should be prioritized for zoning modernization, and what trade-offs are acceptable to achieve this. And examples I'll give are density, building height, parking requirements, streamlining of permitting. I think in a perfect world, you would say, as would anybody, well, we want it all. But realistically, we know that that's not feasible, especially as the cost of development in this part of in our region is increasingly high. It's only continuing to grow. The layering on of increased affordability comes at a cost. The layering on of all the climate, energy code, efficiency that's coming, it's making it harder and harder to develop. And the trade-off that you're seeing there is, unfortunately, people don't do this out of the goodness of their heart. There needs to be an incentive for them to develop. And if you want them to develop in a way in which is going to meet the community goals, there's got to be, whether it's in incentives, whether it's streamlined for permitting, making the barriers to achieving this, reducing those, do you want to see greater density in certain areas? These are the types of things I want you to think about. Tools and approaches, again, specifically, what zoning tools do you want us to prioritize, whether that's revising our inclusionary zoning? I know that is a topic that we've discussed. Multifamily housing, certain uses by right, if we're eliminating the special permit requirement for certain uses, do we want to look at more mixed use overlays? Are there anything in particular that you want staff to avoid as we look at this topic? And then I just have the item there, pursuit of 10% of the subsidized housing inventory and beyond. On April 21st, we actually had a discussion with the select board that voted in favor to direct staff to continue the proactive pursuit of obtaining 10%. Right now, we're approximately at just a little above 8% of our subsidized housing inventory. But we know that, it's beyond 10% because every 10 years with the decennial census, we recalculate what the year-round housing unit total is. So, it's like we're chasing our tail around always. And if we only strive for 10%, meeting 10%, when we come and have the 2030 census recalculate, we know we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. So, I think, of course, it's a great goal to meet that 10%, but what are we doing to go above and beyond that? So we're planning forward for the next census so that hopefully we can avoid being in a scenario where we fall out of a permanent safe harbor. What do you want to see? And I think the thing to think about is when we're looking at meeting the 10%, this is an opportunity. Right now, we're currently in a temporary safe harbor. We have another year left of that safe harbor. But if we meet above 10% and beyond, we can then focus on the types of housing that you want to see through zoning. Whereas if we're discussing 40B, and even if it's a friendly 40B, that's an avenue to trump and go around local zoning and regulations. So really, to be in the driver's seat in conversation, you want to be at that 10% above and, get to the point where you can have these smart negotiations at the local zoning level. And that's where it's sort of like a parallel track. Let's meet 10%, but let's also think about what do we want to set in terms of zoning now, what areas, what tools do you want in place so that we can have those proactive discussions and then really control the narrative in a better fashion moving forward. So that's setting the table. I'll just pause. Did the town manager have anything you'd like to add? Nope, he's good. All right, I'll turn it back to the chair for comment.
Thanks, Lauren. We had the first crack at the last topic, so Mr. Chairman, I'll pass it on to you to take the first crack at this one.
Thank you. I'll open it up to my board in a moment, but let me start by first thanking the Assistant Town Manager for Development for the presentation and for starting to talk about these issues. You added in an important point, something I want to start everyone with the understanding of. We have a challenge that we face. In support of its desire to build more and more housing, the state continues to enact laws to limit or outright circumvent town zoning. Started with Chapter 40B. We're very familiar with that. We've seen MBTA communities. We were able to somewhat circumvent that. How long that will last, one only knows. And now there are new initiatives coming down. I can tell you, for example, that there is a bill currently working its way through the legislature that will limit local control over site plan review, what it is we can review. And this is all designed to restrict our ability to control how housing comes to our community. So it's more important than ever that we enact zoning laws and bylaws that are clear and defensible. Because otherwise, our ability to control what gets developed here is going to be taken away from us, bit by bit. Ms. Lynn talked about the first steps, the cleanup, the basic modernization, fixing our existing bylaws, making sure that things are clear, better definitions, more clarity. They have the benefit of being enforceable and on having people understand what can and can't happen, and have our enforcement mechanisms then actually workable for us. After we do that, we have to start looking at these various items here and here. What our comprehensive plan, what our residents have said they want to see out of us. We have to address both our commercial and our residential zoning because one doesn't exist without the other. In Plymouth, we continue to lose our commercially developable land. We're down to 360 acres of undeveloped commercial space in Plymouth. 360 acres out of 103 square miles. Part of the reason that's happening, of course, is that we aren't allowing our commercial land to be used for its best purposes. Plymouth has had a historical approach. If we zone it, they will come. That's an outmoded way of thinking. We live in a service-based economy, but a lot of our commercial zoning is still largely focused on stronger and larger industries. That has to change because those businesses are not coming to us. And they're leaving our region completely. It's not Plymouth alone that faces this. So we need to be proactive when it comes to commercial zoning. It means bringing in the types of businesses that make sense for Plymouth. And that's a two-step process. Step one, what do the residents want to see? Well, from the comprehensive plan, we know what that is. Businesses that generate tax revenue, that provide living wage jobs in our community, and offer the types of goods and services needed by the residents to remain a viable, vital, year-round community. So we have that. So what's the alternative? What do we do next? Well, now we have to identify businesses that work here. Too many times we hear people saying, oh, it'd be great if we had this. It'd be great if we had that. One of the reasons that those businesses aren't here is because they're not viable here in our community. So we have to identify and encourage the types of businesses that are suited to our economy, our infrastructure, and our environment. That's going to be the challenge, the proactive approach, looking at our zoning and saying not just, well, we can make more land available or we can streamline these processes. We're working on this, but ultimately they won't be of any value to us if they're not attracting businesses that are successful in our community. So we have to start looking differently at how we look at our commercial zoning. Then we have to look at our residential zoning. Over the last 50 years, Plymouth has looked at the residential zoning in a little bit different way than its commercial. They've taken a zone it so they don't come approach. Well, needless to say, that's backfired on us big time. 71% of Plymouth, 71% of 103 square miles is zoned rural residential, 3-acre zoning. With the development of the power plant, there was a proliferation of subdivisions in these areas. Those were built primarily between 1975 and 2000. More housing built during that period of time than since 2000. Think about that. People keep thinking, oh, all of this new building in Plymouth. More housing, more population increase between 1975 and 2000 than between 2000 and 2025. It's the documents here, right here in the comprehensive plan. We have the data. The developments that we created during that 1975 to 2000 period, single-family subdivisions in our rural area. Those are the types of developments that we know cost the town money. Those are just difficult in terms of the services we have to provide, the infrastructure we have to create. So we've got to look at housing differently. Now, Plymouth has definitely done some good things here. We've tried to break the mold. Planned communities like Pine Hills and Redbrook use almost no town infrastructure services, meaning they generate a lot in tax revenue. And they've allowed us to preserve more open space than a traditional subdivision type development would. But by their nature, they're not affordable. They pay for their own infrastructure, and they pay for the open space that the developer is choosing not to build on. So we need to look at changes in our residential zoning that balance affordability and open space protection. And that's what we've talked about. That's what Ms. Lynn talked about just a moment ago. How do we create these balances? What are our trade-offs? They have to be there. We need to look at housing differently. We need to create housing that allows young people to come here, families to stay here, and seniors to age in place here. We need to find housing that can be built where there's existing or planned infrastructure, not out in our rural areas where we have to create new infrastructure and where we create a risk to our sole source aquifer. Because one of the biggest threats to our aquifer are septic systems. And ultimately, we need to meet the different affordability levels to promote opportunities for people to live and work in our community. Now, these are all things that the planning board and planning department are working on right now. We have our marching orders from the comprehensive plan, and we've created initial plans to start going forward. We're working on zoning for cottage-style homes to create a more affordable option without disturbing a lot more land. And we're using the comprehensive plan as our guide. So we're going to be creating a schedule of zoning articles that we'd like to go forward to town meeting with, where we start looking at the things the community has asked us to do. But that's the challenge that we face. The planning board needs to work with these other bodies in town, with this body, the select board, with town meeting, with our committees, presenting what we know are the challenges and the set-offs, the trade-backs that we have to do things that work for our community. It involves one of the toughest words that we have here in Plymouth, change. We have to change the way we think, because what we've been doing, being reactive, hasn't worked for us. And again, it's not just us. I'm not casting aspersions on Plymouth. It is a challenge for everyone in our region, whether it's the South Coast or Massachusetts generally, or the Northeast in its entirety. As Ms. Lynn said, it's become more and more expensive to live here. If we're going to try and help people with affordability, we need to do the things that we need to do. We do need to control our destiny. We need to get a hold of 40B and make sure that it doesn't make changes thrust upon us. We need to make sure that we look at our infrastructure and don't let it go to seed. We need to make sure that we're protecting our environment while at the same time making sure that we don't just become another Cape community where only wealthy people can live here and only spend a few months of the year here. I would hate to see Plymouth. I didn't move to Plymouth 20 years ago to live in that community. I came to this community. I came to a year-round vital community, residents at all levels. I hope we can do that. I look forward to working with this board and the other communities. I know the rest of my fellow planning board members do, to try and achieve the community's vision. Thank you. I'm going to open that up now to the rest of my board. Mr. Bennett?
Well, I must say, I didn't prepare quite as much as Mr. Bulletin did for this. And I certainly will not attempt to come up to his level of eloquence. I think he said it very well. So to be very succinct, I second that. And I think all of the points you made are very, very relevant. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this process play out.
Thank you. Mr. Mann?
Thank you. I prepared a little, but I was not sure what I was preparing for. But in a sense, I'm glad to hear what Lauren has said here. We do need to do this kind of shift, I believe, in how we conduct our business in a way. And what I have here is that we need to restore the effectiveness of the planning board, because its effectiveness shrinks when it becomes, as Mr. Bolton is saying as well, primarily reactive. We review application after the major policy choices have been made by zoning staff, state law, consultants, others. The core principle, I believe, should be that the planning board is most effective when it's not merely a permit processing body, but the town's elected land use policy board. We need to shift our center of gravity from late-stage project reaction to early-stage rulemaking and plan implementation. And we have now the fruits of 2 years of work and great cost, the comprehensive plan that could be the guiding document and should be, I believe, part of our annual planning board work plan. One of the things that seems to be happening, just anecdotally, is we have less and less to do. And it's not that, to some degree, that may be efficiency. It may be that Lauren's office is focusing on areas where they can take care of certain work that we don't have to do. But at the same time, I believe the planning board, being an elected board, being essentially the other executive board in town, has greater responsibilities, so that we should try to convert our regular meetings into those sessions at which we're trying to implement these priorities and trade-offs, whatever they might be, these zoning changes, these regulatory changes that we will discuss amongst ourselves and hear from the public are the real priorities. So I see a real opportunity here with the comprehensive plan and with this new apparent commitment to working with all the other boards and committees. I think it's happening at a very critical moment. I think we need to take these stronger actions. We need to be stronger in what we believe we need to accomplish to move forward. But it seems to be that the moment is ripe, and I'm ready for a fuller agenda on the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did not prepare anything specifically. However, I am very much impressed with Lauren, with your work in putting this presentation together. And Steve, your summarizing and putting forth direction for the board. So I truly look forward to implementing the what we can of the comprehensive plan and making improvements for the town of Plymouth. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I think the planning board has said it's ready to get to work, so we'll turn it over to you to help us guide our way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Canty?
So in terms of direction, what I would like to see happen is I think we need to direct new development whenever possible to areas with the infrastructure to support that development, either already zoned commercial and light industrial, making better use of it, or trying to put when we do have higher density affordable housing, whether it's a 40B or friendly 40B or some other type of higher density housing, into areas where it won't go into a neighborhood and affect single-family homes to the extent that we have any ability to control that, which we don't always, I am aware of, have the ability to control that. I think if we did use overlay districts, or perhaps even just looking at the underlying zoning itself, to allow, particularly in terms of commercial and light industrial, I think with the trade-offs, density, building height, parking requirements, and streamlined permits would all be on the table for me, at least, with commercial and industrial, making the better use of that. But I would want to be targeting specific types of jobs with that, whether that be vocational jobs in trades like your plumbers, electricians, carpenters, or white-collar professional jobs, jobs that provide necessary services that are the backbone of a local economy, or pay a good wage. As we know through the comprehensive plan, over 70% of the people that live here commute out of here to be able to afford to live here. Over 70% of our employees that work in this community are commuting from other communities in order to work in Plymouth. So that's not, in my opinion, a very sustainable model for a community. So being able to target those types of jobs and make it easier for those types of jobs to move in here, I think would be a benefit. It's not going to happen overnight, but the sooner we get started, the sooner we'll start seeing results. And streamlining permitting specifically in regards to the types of jobs we're trying to attract. I'm not saying we open like bleach factories in the community. I'm saying we make it easier to open the businesses that we do want within the areas we've already identified. With affordable housing, I proposed the policy that we voted on the 21st. I do think it is important to pursue that, to get into safe harbor for the prior census, to try and use building permits to get into, to estimate the census number for 2030. That'll hit us in 2032, and trying to maintain safe harbor. Because if we're able to do that and be in safe harbor for like a 14-ish year period, then we can use CPA funds, affordable housing trust funds, and other public-private partnerships to try and bring down the AMI from 80% to 60, 40, whatever, as needed, and as much as possible in future developments in the community. I think that would provide a necessary level of service to people that need affordable housing. It would protect our residents and their neighborhoods from 40B developments coming into areas without the infrastructure to support it in ways that are burdensome and undesirable. And it would also help us control our own destiny and have local zoning actually apply. I would say approaches to avoid would be, I don't know that the town right now, that there's much of an appetite for changing the fundamental character of existing neighborhoods in particular. I think that those want to be protected. I do think you could, in village centers, have mixed-use overlays. I think many of the village centers, that would make sense, and I think that provides good, modest, affordable-esque, even if they're not deeded affordable, there are more affordable housing options than some of our others, as well as the services that the underlying businesses usually provide. So, out of the options presented and what you're looking for, those are my opinions on what I think specifically we should prioritize. I think that would help bring in better jobs that pay a better wage and provide affordable housing that protects neighborhoods while also providing the service. Thank you.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Lauren, thank you so much for this presentation, and thank you to the planning board for teeing up the discussion so nicely. I really appreciate the fact that we do have the comprehensive plan to help guide the decisions here. So it's sort of our guidepost now as we think about what we want to do with zoning. And I was struck as Mr. Bulletin was describing sort of the vision, the path forward, so nicely, that, you know, the differences between looking at commercial zoning opportunities and residential zoning opportunities. It struck me that residential is a much easier thing to tackle than commercial, simply because to me, it seems like it's more of a push, right? We identify the type of housing that we want in Plymouth, the cottage-style homes and the other ideas that you all are bringing forth to the table. And then that sort of suggests and informs the kind of zoning that we need. But with commercial, it's a little bit different because I think we all agree that we want to identify the type of businesses that will fit. But whereas I see residential as sort of a push, the commercial is more of a pull. So how do we get those businesses? I mean, we know we have a wish list of the kinds of businesses we want, but who is actually going out there to recruit them? And then, you know, how do we design, I guess my question is, do we develop zoning to support the kind of businesses we want and hope that they'll come? Or do we identify the kind, you know, have a business in mind that is willing to come and then develop the zoning there? So it's a little bit like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So that's just a comment and a question.
You looking for an answer?
I'd love an answer, but if that's not possible tonight, I'm willing to wait for one.
All right.
So I'll say that I think both approaches are valid. It is a bit like a chicken and an egg. If you build it, will they come? But how will they know? I think part of the reactionary approach of saying, okay, you want to come here, but now we need to change zoning. Okay, when's the next town meeting we can get on? We have to build consensus. Whereas knowing in advance, it's a little bit more proactive thinking. So I would lean towards, you know, and that is something that we can work with the planning board as well as the other, you know, I've mentioned other economic development partners. We have the foundation being one of them, using the networks that we have already to do that engagement and identify what's missing, you know, what's being perhaps left on the table that we don't have the zoning to accommodate, so that we can proactively plan. And then we're not in a scenario where, oh, you don't want to wait 18 months for us to introduce new zoning. You know, I think we can work on that.
Okay, I love that answer. I love that we're able to be proactive in developing the kinds of zoning bylaws that we need in order to attract those businesses that we want. Thank you.
Mr. Gohan?
Yes, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Steve and the planning board for going through this comprehensive plan and having staff begin this direction. I do believe that we need to be proactive in terms of looking at our zoning bylaws and making changes that will make this plan a reality. And I've been saying this for some time, that we need to look at the plan and determine what in this plan do we want to see happen, and how can we change our bylaws to make that happen? Because, you know, this idea of if they come, if we build it, will they come, you know? But at the same time, if we do nothing, we're subject to the current zoning bylaws and we're kind of trapped in a situation. We know enough now from having this engagement with the community about the master plan that we know, where we should be going and taking the initiative to look at those current bylaws. Now, when you talk about the modernization of the bylaw at the beginning of the PowerPoint and the cleaning up process, I guess I have 2 points I'd like to make. One is that as we embark on this cleanup process, I think that we need to be engaging a number of, between the select board and the planning board and other committees and boards and residents about, as we move forward to clean up the current bylaw. I do think that process should be quite transparent, and then we should be engaged. I'm not sure what the staff's recommendation, how they'll logistically go about cleaning up that process, but I do believe that they should be a process that there are a number of eyes looking at that process when we look at our bylaw, where we're doing administrative activities and where something might need some addressing in terms of the tables that you spoke of and the concerns that you brought up. So I really am kind of focused on that cleanup process and who it will involve, because I think it's important that that process is transparent and is responding to the concerns of all the residents. The other thing I wanted to just make a point is that when I look at the comprehensive plan, the master plan that we went through, the consultant that we did have working on that went through great extents to engage the residents. And I want to continue that process as we start to clean up our zoning bylaws, modernize our zoning bylaws, and eventually go to town meeting with recommendations. I really believe that the residents should be involved in that process, because one of the things that we did get back from the community was the importance of the goal of maintaining some of our rural characters. I've heard a lot about housing and economic development and zoning, but we also should looking at opportunities where we can preserve our rural character, our open space. We live on this sole source water aquifer. We have a lot of responsibility to protecting that. So I do want to see in the future making sure that there's some indication to the residents and the boards that this is how they plan to address that component of the master plan, because it is a component of the growth of the town, of protecting some of these qualities because they are financially beneficial to us to protecting them for a lot of different reasons. But I just wanted to input that when we go to clean up this zoning bylaw process, I want that to be transparent and involve the public and boards and committees, and always keep in mind the importance of conservation and preservation as we move forward in maintaining that characteristic of the town. But thank you very much. Very helpful direction to work on.
Thanks, Lauren, for opening up the discussion. I think that for my priorities, I'd like to see us work on more by right uses. I think your predecessor came before us a number of years ago and helped clean up some of the zoning bylaws a little bit to say like there were places in town where like a boatyard was a disallowed use, but there was a boatyard that already existed in that area. I don't know why that's the example that comes to mind, but that was happening with banks and all kinds of other commercial enterprises across the community. So I'd like to open up the by right allowed uses a bit more, particularly in the commercial category. I think we hear all the time that it's difficult for folks to navigate the committee structure in the town of Plymouth. We just had a commercial enterprise here tonight that presented a conceptual presentation for what would be a very high value commercial property with some additional economic considerations like jobs and mixed use commercial and living spaces. And they came in front of a joint session of the planning board and the select board. They're going to go back in front of the planning board at some point. The deal for the development deal is going to come back in front of the select board. So that's 3 meetings right there. They're probably going to meet jointly with the select board, with the planning board and some of the steering committees. Those steering committees may want to crack at them by themselves too. They're probably going to be in front of the ZBA at some point. There's a lot of red tape that goes into trying to build in this town. And I think that I would like to see some of that limited. And I think that, in terms of that's, the commercial side. In terms of housing, the community's desperately in need of housing at various price points. We all talk about affordable housing. Every person that's been elected to either of these boards has talked about affordable housing at some point in time. But if we're not putting our money where our mouth is, then we're just creating a never-ending campaign platform plank. I'd like to see us invest more in workforce housing. I was grateful to see that we have some senior living housing that's coming in. But, we've done that with the Grantham project too. And so, I don't want us to forget about our young families that are just starting out. And everyone in between, everyone at every stage of life has different housing needs. So we need price points that are far below what is market right now in Plymouth. Some of us have our real estate licenses, Mr. Cohen, you might know better than I, but I think our median price point right now is somewhere in the 700,000 zone. And that's not affordable for a lot of folks. When I bought my first home in Plymouth, it was south of the $500,000 mark. In just 4 years, it appreciated to almost $800,000. That is absolutely unattainable for a lot of people, especially folks who have grown up here. So I want to make sure that we're working. I'm grateful that our board endorsed the pursuit of the 10% subsidized housing. I'd love to see the planning board do so as well formally. I know they're all interested in it, so I don't think that will be too heavy of a lift, but I want us, as we're in pursuit of that 10% subsidized housing, to think about the folks who are here, who are willing to work with us and get us the housing that is that satisfies people at different points in their lives. So that would be my feedback. Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Members of the board, planning board, anything? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else from the select board? Mr. Town Manager?
If I just could add a few items. So when Lauren and I came before the select board to talk about our proposed reorganization, which the board unanimously endorsed, it was really built around these critical areas. And I said that evening that once we have the direction, we now have a team in place that we can execute that decision. And I would say that, listening to tonight's discussion, I heard a lot of, we did this, we did that. We listened to a proposal today, nothing that we did as a community. This developer came in, they had an idea, and we're sitting here in a reactive posture, listening to their idea. Lauren came up with the great idea of this complex, this unified complex, which is why we got it to the place that it is today. As Mr. Quintal pointed out, it wasn't, what he originally had hoped, right? But it's better than what was originally proposed. So what I would suggest is that we have to get out of the reactive posture. I think, and I've said this for many years now, that we should be spending more time with state agencies like Mass Bio, like Mass Development. We have a lot to offer, but I don't think anybody knows it except for the folks that live in this community or the developers that already exist. So as we go through the zoning modernization process, I think we should be having conversations on a regular basis with state agencies because they're always out there recruiting these types of businesses, opportunities for various communities. And so I don't think we should be known as a community that's ready for nuclear. Right? Is that the only thing we're going to be known for? There's so many other opportunities that we could present ourselves. So, I would state that, I think one thing Lauren and I can do with the support of the foundation, we will be pushing them because they have resources, they're a partner. We'll be pushing them to spend more time in Boston to have those conversations with those state agencies and bring back business opportunities that we can zone for appropriately. So, I appreciate the direction. We have some more insight so that we can go ahead and, hopefully find those opportunities that aren't readily in front of us today.
Lauren, do you feel like you've gotten sufficient direction?
I do. Thank you. I appreciate your time and feedback, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you on this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're welcome to stay with us for the duration of our business, but if you'd like to adjourn your meeting, I'd be happy to turn things over to you.
Thank you very much. Anything further from the planning board? Seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn the planning board meeting?
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? The planning board for this evening is adjourned.
Thank you, folks, for joining us here tonight. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chair, and the Select Board for your invitation to join you this evening. I hope it has been as informative for you as it has been for us.
I believe it has. Thank you. All right, we'll move on in the agenda. The next item we have is budget preparation. I had the staff send out a memo to you folks. I believe it was landed in your mailboxes today about having a proactive fiscal oversight and strategic budgeting monitoring policy in place. We're moving forward into a new fiscal year very soon. This year is rapidly getting away from us. July 1st, we start fiscal year 2027. We've spent a lot of time talking about fiscal year 2028 budgets and beyond. At our April 7th meeting, the finance director came in and talked to us about what I keep talking about as the fiscal cliff. We're seeing budget deficits that as soon as fiscal year 2028 will be about 1.4 million. And they'll balloon to more than 14.8 million come fiscal year 2032 if we're not proactively working towards some mitigation. When I talk about the fiscal cliff, I talk about the total evaporation of our excess levy capacity. What Lynn presented to us is not just the evaporation, it goes beyond that. It drives us into an area that we could be looking at the possibility of an override. I think our residents expect us to be fiscally disciplined and responsible with the funding they provide to us. And so, I'd like to try to find ways that we can mitigate the negative impacts of this structural deficit early so that we don't have to make far more difficult choices later on. So tonight I'm proposing two different initiatives. The first is that I would like to direct the town manager through an official vote of this board to have enhanced monthly financial reporting. I think that there are four elements that I'm looking for in that, and I'm happy to open it up to the board to add, detract, modify, however you feel appropriate. The first is that I'd like to see a total spend analysis. So this is just a department level breakdown of what has been spent year to date as compared to budget projections. The next is a variance reporting. So this is identifying any unforeseen expenses that come up during the course of the year that we didn't think we were going to incur, or any unanticipated savings that we realize from the prior month's report. Efficiency tracking, I'd like to look at identifying specific line items that are being underspent compared to where they have been in the past. That could allow us to identify areas that, perhaps don't need as robust funding in the future. And then internal transfers. These are just disclosures of any money that have either moved interdepartmentally or either across departments or within a department. If money's not being spent, that to me is an easy area that we could effect a cut. So that's the first initiative. The second is, and we've already sort of talked about this, I'm really saying that we should move up the timeline on this. I think during our joint meeting with the Advisory and Finance Committee and the School Committee, folks were mostly upset about the timing of the 1% cut discussion. I'd like to hedge that as we move forward. If we are going to be facing cuts in the future, let's have the discussion as early as possible. So basically, I'm asking for a series of departmental review summits where 1, 2, 3 department heads come in each month between August and December and start talking to the board about areas that they can make surgical cuts that wouldn't impact the services that they render to our citizens, and also wouldn't result in scaling back of our workforce. I think in doing these measures, we would, I think, secure the health of the financial health of our community and make the difficult decisions that we're going to have over the next couple of years all the easier. I also think that these are these are, we've talked about doing these things, and so I'm really just asking for a formal vote to move these forward tonight. So happy to open it up, let folks discuss. Mr. Cohen?
Yes, thank you. This is, we've been, over a period of time, we've had a number of discussions about budget oversight. One of the initiatives from the last working session that we had was to go to town meeting and start to create an atmosphere where we could talk about the budget process differently, build it, discuss it, and vote on it in a manner in which we have a greater level of understanding. I like how you have put together a series of ways of doing the next step. The next step is this thing regarding budget oversight, where we have the town staff coming in on a monthly basis. I like how you broke down the things that you'd like to see take place during that process. The only thing I could add is that obviously, town meeting has just voted on a budget that will go into effect on July 1st, and we should be prepared when that budget takes effect, that we have 365 days, as Ms. Iaquinto has indicated at past meetings, that we have that amount of time to come up with a budget for the next year. So it'd be great if we could build on this to say that starting in July and August, we're looking at the actuaries, we're looking at the revenue coming in from the town of Plymouth, and how that's going to affect the budget. So as we start to work through the fall about building a budget, the only thing I could add is two things. One, we should have in there that the Finance Committee and their subcommittee chairs should be part of that process when the town manager meets with department heads to have these discussions. I really would like to see the FinCom play a role in the fall when the town staff is building a budget. And that we should, I know that it's been mentioned in the past that when town staff is preparing a budget for our review, we should be looking at not only the level, you mentioned the 1% cut, but we should be looking at level service, level funded in maybe the 1%. I know in previous town managers have looked at turning to their staff and asking for them for options for the budget process in terms of when we start looking at it in the next year, that we're given different scenarios that we can look at in terms of where we are financially. Do we have to look at a 1%? Do we have to look at level service, level funded? It's just something that I think that might be helpful. So my suggestion is that we try to incorporate the FinCom subcommittees in that process when they're building the budget, and ask town staff that eventually when we do get a budget that we look at the different options of level service, level funded, and maybe a 1%. So I'd like to hear what my other board members think about that addition to what you're suggesting here tonight.
Yeah, I'm comfortable adding a fifth bullet point here to add revenue tracking. I think that fits well with what the spirit of this memo is. And the initiative that I'm trying to codify here tonight. I would prefer to keep the FinCom piece and the three different level budgets as a separate conversation. I don't think that fits with what this is trying to do. But I'm not saying that those discussions shouldn't happen. I'd like to stick to kind of what the direction is for our monthly reports and our monthly interactions with the staff. And then I think we can take those other items up as separate discussion items.
And I know that we've had one workshop to talk about this. We can always enhance it on a second workshop to perfect that. So, I think the budget oversight process, as we've been working on it for some time, through our workshops, we should consider a second workshop to address this and some of the other issues that we, as board members, would like to see incorporated into how we approach the next fiscal year.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David, for putting this together. I think this is a really good foundational piece for us to work with. So just to clarify, so your goal here is just to get a plan together for the enhanced monthly financial reporting, and then, which I understand, and then the departmental review summits. These are more conversations, or are these are not budget presentations? These are just discussions?
Yeah, well, so when these folks, when we start having these conversations, if they start coming in August, the fiscal year 26 will be largely in the books at that
Right.
point in time. So they can look back to where they were in fiscal 26, and they're gonna start seeing their spending trends for fiscal 27. Some of them will get to see more of that based on when they arrive in front of us. But no, I actually think that the purpose of those meetings is for them to come in here and say, well, maybe these are areas that we could scale back. Because we already know we're going to be facing a $1.4 million deficit. So we've got to start working on that, I think, today.
Well, I mean, I agree. Many times I've said how I feel such a sense of urgency about this that sometimes I lose my breath over it. And I actually, I hate to be, bring more negative news to this, but I actually think that the deficit that we're going to see next year is going to be more than 1.4 million, because I am not sure that we have really good assumptions for expense growth trends. I think what we were able to look at was a 4% expense assumption. And, the actuals are actually much, much higher than that. So I think that when Lynn comes back to us, I think she said after the election, sometime in late May, June-ish, probably is more like it, when she'll be able to do a deeper dive into the forecasting. So hopefully we'll get a much more realistic picture. But I would echo what Mr. Cohan has suggested. I would love to see 3 separate options for budgets: the level funded budget, the level service budget, but I'd also like to see one with a 2% increase, because I don't think it's reasonable to ask, we need to see what the level funded budget would be. Because that's going to be hard enough for people to actually, do something with a reason, on a reasonable level. If we went below that, I think that would be devastating, and that would be, sort of, we might need to do that at some point, but I think just those 3 with a 2% increase would be really helpful to see. And then that way we could kind of look at the different scenarios and maybe, pick and choose from, maybe this service is level funded and this one is a 2% increase and that one is a level service. We could, we would have those kinds of options.
Yeah.
So when would you think that sort of a discussion would happen?
I mean, the item that we listed here tonight was budget preparation, I think, and we listed that votes are anticipated. So I think we could make a decision if we want to direct staff to work on those 4 budgets as well. So I guess what I would say is I would take this in probably 3 separate motions, the 2 that I presented and the additional one that we're discussing now.
Okay,
And then we can move discussion forward, whatever the pleasure of this board is.
okay, all right.
Mr. Canty?
So, having just received your memo this evening, which is unfortunate, but could you explain to me in more depth what you mean by the departmental review summits? Because we had talked about, when we moved the town meeting date, having, in the December timeframe, having 1 or 2 department or division heads come in, present the budget to us in sort of an abbreviated way of what they do for the Advisory and Finance Committee. So is this in addition to that, or is this a substitution of that?
I think that it could be in addition to. For me, what I'm trying to get ahead of is any discussion that we're pulling the rug out from departments at the last minute, that we're not giving them enough time to plan for potential cuts. And so I want these summits to be them coming in and talking about what their past budget was, where they are today, and what they think they could live without in fiscal 28.
So would that be, you'd bring them in and then we'd still do what we talked about? Or this is,
Yeah, because I mean, in December, they'll be looking at what their final budget was. And they can present that to us, and then we can still have those discussions of, well, we think you need to cut here or there. Or we agree with your budget that, as proposed, and we'll move that forward.
yeah, I mean, I think that having them in December, as we talked about, is essential. I think that framing, I do think that framing everything in the context of a cut is potentially problematic. A lot of the services that the town provides are services that people depend upon. So I don't, and I do think that there could be some negative externalities that you'd be causing through the efficiency tracking. I remember when I was a student at Plymouth Public Schools, my freshman year, the back of my geometry class had a table full of compact Presario desktop computers that were under plastic, that were purchased because if the money wasn't spent at the end of the year, it would have been taken away next year. And that the schools now engage in giving that money back, and that's a big source of our free cash, which we spend on other things. But a potential negative externality of making people essentially dance for their dinner is that they will eat and clean their plate regardless of whether they need all the food. And that's something that should be considered as a potential negative externality. I think that reviewing the budget with a sense of what that budget does for the community and how we can be best responsible is one thing, but I don't think that starting from a presumption of a cut is perhaps the right narrative to put out in the community.
Yeah, I mean, that's for this board to decide. I'm framing it in that way, but there are 5 people here who have to make decisions about the budget moving forward. I believe that we need to make small surgical cuts now so that we don't have to make major slashes come fiscal year 29. That could result in service cuts, in staff scaling back. Like that's what I want to avoid. So that's why that's why I framed it this way tonight, but I'm only one of 5, so. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, as I'm listening to the discussion here, I feel like if we ask the department heads to come in with those 3 different scenarios, then we can have the kind of discussion that you're talking about. Like, what can you live without? What can you do creatively to provide the kinds of services that we need in the town? Are there different ways that we can, think about delivering those services? So that might be something to think about. And then, the other thing, we need to start asking some really hard questions of ourselves and of the department heads, like what are service levels higher than what they need to be? Like, I don't know what the answer would be that would be, but, compared to other communities, are we doing things more than we need to be doing? So those are the kinds of questions. And then also, how can we gain some efficiencies? Are there, are there areas where we can consolidate? Are there areas where we can think about bringing in contract employees to do short-term work rather than hiring someone and owning them and owning all the benefits for a longer period of time, just to think differently about how we, the cost of our personnel too. So I just think there's so much that we should be thinking about. I think, Mr. Cohen, what you had suggested too, we had said that we were going to have another budget workshop once we were able to get a more robust sense of the forecasting. So maybe that's something that can happen, and we can, think about all, ask all of these questions and plan more effectively for how we want this to play out.
Mr. Cohen?
No, I saw this on the agenda and then I got the memo and I was delighted to see it because town meeting has passed. We were able to go to town meeting as a result of one workshop, propose changes to town meeting to allow this conversation to occur. The only one thing I would add to what was being proposed tonight is that you mentioned we start this in August. I think we might try to start this as soon as possible, because I think that time is of the essence and that we should ease into it, knowing that August is really where the issues start to develop around getting ready to prepare a budget. But we should be still in June and July, we should be hearing from staff about how the fiscal year has gone for this budget, how much we were off, where we were, what the actuals are actually saying, and how that might affect the July 1st implementation of what town meeting just voted. And then this other thing that we're talking about now, working on the next fiscal budget. I like how you've broken this down, the way that you've broken it down about financial, monthly financial reporting. This is something that we've talked about, and I like how you've enhanced it. And I do understand the department review summits where we're taking the opportunity to bring different departments in to hear from them. But again, we can, I keep falling back on that it would be helpful to have, when we have an end product to look at, that staff has provided us with options in terms of level service, level funded, and this idea of a percentage cut. I'll wait to see what my fellow board members think about this, and we can engage the FinCom, but as we get into the next fiscal year, it would be something that we should look at about having subcommittee chairs sit in on those discussions so they can report back to the FinCom, and when this information eventually hits them, they have some knowledge of it, or it's not a surprise to them. I guess that's what I was trying to eliminate.
Yeah, I had originally actually started this in July, and I spoke with the town manager, and I think he made a good point. The first update would be there is no update because the budget would have just started. I don't know, do you want to talk more about that, Derek?
Yeah, I would say that, if there was going to be any presentation in July, it'd have to be after, July 15th. That's when we close the books for that fiscal year. And, we could do it like we do a year in review for our goals. We could do a year in review for our finances, sometime the end of July. But as far as a monthly status update of the sitting fiscal year, we probably wouldn't be able to have anything real to report until sometime in August to September time period.
So I think if we do adopt this enhanced monthly financial reporting, I guess we would ask that July could be a review of fiscal year 26. It could be after the middle of the month so that you folks have enough time to digest and move it forward. And then from there, we would follow this model that I presented here tonight.
Yeah, and again, I didn't, work with our finance director. It's a busy time of year for the finance department. They're closing out their books, trying to certify free cash. They're trying to certify new growth, amongst many other things. So, I'd work with the finance director on the timing on that when she could pull something together that the board would find useful.
Mr. Canty?
So finance is exceptionally busy throughout the month of July. So I think having any type of a meaningful update in July would be a big ask for the finance department because books close out on the 15th, but then they have to process it for the weeks afterwards. So I would suggest in lieu of that, if we had a first run at whatever we decide in, say, June, and then we use July to talk, not with finance, but talk amongst the board of, is there anything we would like to tweak about that presentation we received in June for when they're going to come in August? Because then we're not burdening finance when they're basically trying not to drown and keeping the train on the tracks. We're still moving forward, but we're not distracting unnecessarily.
Mr. Cohen?
I think that's a better approach.
Ms. Iaquinto?
So just to clarify, what would we be discussing in June
So we would follow this model in June.
for the enhanced?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we'd say, here's what we want to change. Go do July. You have a busy month, and then come back in August with, does that summarize what you?
Yeah, we'd have the report in June. We would then debrief about what we liked, what we'd like to see maintained or changed in July at that equivalent meeting.
Yep.
And then in August, we'd have the 1.5 version of it with any modifications that were made.
Does that work for you, Derek?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is we would do the monthly report. We probably wouldn't have the department, what did you call it?
Not the summits, just the report.
Right, not the department
Yeah.
summit. This would just be.
And I'm
the-
gonna take
Yeah.
these two items separately, because
Yeah.
it sounds like there might be
No,
some
yeah, I think that's fair.
disagreement on the board on that particular piece of it, but I think it sounds like we have general agreement on the monthly reporting. I don't know, is Mr. Quinto still with us, and does he have anything he wants to add? All right. Anyone else on, we'll start with the enhanced monthly financial reporting. Mr. Canty?
We might benefit from adding like a catch-all as a fifth, like anything like unexpected, good or bad. Like, for example, we had one of the unexpected good or bads this past year would have been when we started hearing about the Ozempic funding. It would be bad. But sometimes there's good news that like local receipts are up or something like that.
Yeah, so that's what I was envisioning for variance reporting. But with the Ozempic piece, perhaps it's like future budgetary concerns.
Or like budget hot thermometer or something.
Like risk indicators or something like that.
Yeah, something new and notables in the budget or something.
We're looking for the good and the bad. We're looking for
Right,
the,
anything notable that's good or bad.
yeah, has anything come in? I'm sure there's been probably communications through, currently with the town, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they're probably giving us some indication of where things might be. So things like that could be news that's coming in, that whether it's good or bad.
Right.
So I don't have a good name for it right now, but I would add this as, I guess, a sixth item, future good or bad topics. We can workshop that, Derek, after this meeting.
Okay,
What was
future,
the-
future
what's the
threats,
The fifth was
opportunities?
revenue tracking. So I guess I'll make a motion then, that we adopt the enhanced monthly financial reporting as described with the following additions: revenue tracking and future good, bad issues. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think Mr. Cohen beat you to the microphone, but I appreciate both seconds. Further discussion? Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Myself, yes. On departmental revenue summits, I'll just take the temperature of the board. Ms. Iaquinto?
I would like to see this expanded to include the 3 different budget scenarios, because I think the discussion will be much more meaningful and robust if we're actually looking at options, and having the department heads kind of go through that exercise to help them really formulate their thinking.
I understand what you're saying much better now.
Okay.
So rather than simply looking at cuts, what you're saying is their monthlies would come in, they would present to us what their department would look like at a level service, at a level funded, at a 1% cut?
No, not-
Or a
well-
2% increase?
I don't think we should do the 1% cut, but the 2% increase versus a 4 or 5% increase.
Okay.
I mean, if we want to do the cut too, that would be,
I mean, I would
to
like
me.
to, I would like to see.
I know you
1%
would like
cut.
to do that, and I think Mr. Cohen would like to do that too.
Well, a
That
level-
makes me nervous, but
Yeah,
we-
a level service budget is more than that.
yeah, level service budget would be pretty devastating.
How would you like
Well,
to,
a level funded budget.
I'm sorry, level funded budget would be pretty devastating, yeah.
level service, level funded,
And
and
2% increase.
2%.
Okay.
All right. That's your bottom and your middle. Yeah, because a level funded budget would be often like a 3 or 4% cut. And I think if you had the options there, you could take a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. Like when we went through the quote unquote 1% exercise, there were things that were identified that were not necessary. at all. So they were easy cuts versus other ones that were going to be more painful for residents based on service loss or other needs.
Yeah.
So if we have, a level funded is gonna show you everything that you could do without, more than a 1% would.
My only concern and pushback on that is that a level service budget a level funded budget would be devastating to the departments, and I think that I think they'd go into, like 5-alarm fire mode. And we would lose some of the more surgical pieces, that, like the smaller cuts that could make a meaningful difference in a future budget.
But so the 1% cut would be 1% off of level service or off of level
Yeah,
funded?
off of level service.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was off.
So
of
something in
level.
between level funded and level service.
So that would be my 2%. The
No, that would
recommendation.
be,
So,
that would be above
Above the two.
level. That would be above level service,
okay.
right? A 2% increase.
No.
A level service budget is more than a 2% increase.
So like
typically.
it could be, based on Lynn's assumption, it could be, say it's a 4%.
4%, so that's a 2%
Say it's
cut,
4%,
actually.
so then that would be a 2% cut.
Right, so you'd
below
have,
that.
like, typically your level service would be your top, level funded would be your bottom, and a 2% would be your middle.
Yeah, so I think they just need to frame it to us too, that this actually is a cut. So we're saying it's a 2% increase from where it is in FY '27.
Correct.
But it's down
It
from what a
would be a
level
cut
service would be.
from, yeah.
It depends on your perspective, whether you want to frame it as a cut or an increase.
No, I know, but I'm saying like it needs to be framed as these are cost saving measures is
Yeah.
really what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an exercise.
Yeah, they would be cost-saving measures.
And if it were presented in a way similar to the 1% where it's line items are identified, then you would have the opportunity to say yes to 1 and 2, but no to 3, 4, and 5 as needed.
Sorry, I've been looking down this end of the table. I don't want
No, that's okay. No, I'm listening intently, learning. You guys.
Come on down here, Bill.
There's a lot to learn. I got this missing seat here. Level service, and then, but now you're talking 2% down from level service? No, okay. And then the devastating blow, which is level funded. So that's how we're asking people to approach us, by giving us their level service look, 2% down from level service, and then level funded.
And the departments have done level funded in the past during significant problematic times, but it hasn't been pleasant. But it has been proposed at times, and not, it's usually not adopted at a level funded level, but it's been discussed and presented.
In numbers, it's like cutting $13 to $15 million out of your budget.
Yeah,
It's a significant cut.
it is, yeah.
I think it's important for us to look at that and to, to discuss it in public session too, so that our residents can understand exactly where their tax dollars are going and what we're trying to do with the hard decisions that we need to be making.
I'm perfectly fine amending my description to fit what we've just discussed here tonight. So instead of doing these summits as you come in, you talk about surgical cuts, you present what your department would look like at each level. Is that what you're saying?
I think that would be great, yeah.
Do you want to do that in August? Starting in August? It seems early for that.
I don't think we can be too early on this.
I don't know that they would have much of a sense of their level service needs at that time.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way we could draft 3 budget scenarios by August.
What's the earliest time?
Well, we always try to look at our revenues in September, so can we look at them earlier? I mean, September's probably aggressive to look at your revenues.
I would agree with that.
And so I think probably the earliest, again, this is, because it's a process, right? So it's not like we just put a budget together and present it. We go through the iterations of sitting down and talking about them. I mean, honestly, it's maybe the end of October, and that's aggressive.
So September is the last month of the first quarter in terms of a municipal budget cycle. I think waiting till the end of October is too late. I think people will start it'll just open up the argument to, we can't possibly make any of these adjustments because you're coming to us at the last minute. I think we'll face the same arguments again, and that's what I'm trying to avoid with this. I'd like to see, I'm willing to compromise. I think, so I said August, you said the end of October. Can we target the beginning of October?
I'll
Oh,
wait
town
to
meeting.
respond. Yeah, you've got town meeting and you've got what he's talking about with revenues, like, and also expenses, like, you don't know what you're projecting for, like, cost of living increases that are not gonna hit till the following July. So if you start in September, that's a lot of runway. I think the people that go up first are gonna have real bad data. You might be able to talk to them in September or October about it, but they're not gonna have information you can rely on.
How do we not know the cost of living increases now?
We look now for July?
Yeah.
I would think we would, but like if you were talking, if we had them in, let's say this year, for example, if we had them in early October, putting this town meeting aside, they wouldn't know anything about the increase of the cost of oil, for example, and all the knock-on effects that that's having on supplies and materials, fuel prices, as well as cost of living for contracted services and for just employees, right? So, and the farther out you get from world events that we have no control over, the worse the data is gonna get. And then we're gonna be we're solving one problem but creating another. And I think if we, after town meeting in November, had the first of these and used November and December, because we were talking about December before this, use November and December for that, then at least it's a multi-month process. We're still not handing the budget over until after the holidays, so there's plenty of time to digest and even circle back on it. I think you could still have what you're looking for, but have more reliable data going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear you on the town meeting piece of things, and I know the tremendous lift it is for your team to get us through town meeting. So again, I'm willing to compromise. I don't want this piece to fail because of my interest in seeing this as early as possible. I guess what would you, so Mr. Canty has recommended November. Mr. Brindisi?
I just wanted to add that what we haven't talked about is probably the most complicating factor outside of health insurance, is all of our collective bargaining agreements have expired. And so it's gonna be, so we would have to make a lot of assumptions in a public presentation on what those CBAs would resolve in. So that's gonna be X factor. And the other thing too is if, like, and I'm gonna make up a number. So say we added another 3% into the budget for cost of living for our employees. You basically have shown your cards to the unions as to what you plan on settling for. So I just throw that out there because it's worth consideration. And honestly, when I think about next year's budget preparation, I'm concerned because of the fact that we have to enter into negotiations with, on the town side, 5 unions. On the school side, I think they have another 4 that they have to enter into. So it's something just to be mindful of, that we're not gonna have, to Mr. Canty's point, a lot of the data that we need to build a really sound budget.
But wouldn't we be doing that in December anyways?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's my point. And that's why I'm saying this year is gonna be a very challenging budget cycle because of collective bargaining.
So,
But there was one, sorry to cut you off, but I mean, there was one thought that we set collective bargaining this summer. And so that we have a solid number going into the budget preparation. But quite frankly, that's gonna be a challenge as well. We don't know what our revenues are gonna be. We have no idea, again, the governor's budget doesn't come out until January. So we're gonna be entering this discussion, whether it's September or October, with a lot of unknowns.
So Mr. Canty has suggested November as a start time, so we would roughly do half the departments. We would do half in November, half in December.
I'm comfortable with that.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think there's other work that we can do prior to look at the budget and look at other opportunities for efficiencies that aren't, that might be a little bit outside the box.
Sure.
Thinking. So I think, we can, as long as we keep the conversation going.
Yeah, that's all I'm interested in seeing happen, so I'm happy
I
to
agree.
make that concession. Did you have something else to say? Sorry, I think I.
No, I just want to keep track of, obviously, the Beacon Hill. They're finalizing discussions, and we should have, maintain an open line of communication as best we can with our state delegation to find out if things are still on track. We had one legislative update from our delegation that things looked promising. I just want to make sure that, that we, obviously, I'm sure the delegation is going to be in contact with the town on that. I just think it's something that should be noted.
All right, so I guess I'll make a motion then that beginning in November, we request presentations from department heads for what their department would look like at a level service budget, a level funded budget, and a budget that's a 2% increase from fiscal year 27. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Myself, yes. All right, thank you folks for the discussion here tonight. I'll move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Brindisi?
Okay, a number of items to present. So first, I want to just announce and remind the select board that tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Over at 280 Plimpton Road, we will be having a groundbreaking ceremony for the new Freedom Memorial Cemetery. So again, at 3 p.m., we'll have this groundbreaking ceremony. And then last week, we had two really great planning sessions led by Commissioner Brady for the first step in developing the Community Health Improvement Plan. And as I mentioned last week and the week before, they're really focused on 4 areas of priorities. So one is on mental health and addictive services. The other one is on financial security and employment. The third is on affordable housing. And then the fourth is on access to healthy foods and food security. So at least 2 of the items under the Community Health Improvement Plan align very nicely in the discussion we had tonight. So we'll continue to work with the commissioner and hopefully come back sometime in June for a final presentation in front of the board. Great news to announce, so hold the applause. The Cal Cafe is now accepting credit cards. So it was cash only up until now, but now they've expanded the opportunity so you can actually bring credit cards. So they are expecting an increase in volume given the fact that they have credit cards now. Lady Justice, as I reported last week, has now been removed from the cupola here at the 1820 courthouse. It's being stored at Mary B. Lane until further notice. We'll have to make a determination on repairing that or replacing Lady Justice. So more to come on that piece. Some infrastructure improvements that have taken place. I reported in the past that this week we're starting improvements on Town Wharf Way, adding sidewalks to that road. Once that is complete, we'll then move to Spooner Alley. But you'll also see if you go down on the wharf at the town pier, there's a lot of improvements. We have 3 phases of pier improvements. We'll do phase 1 this year, and you'll see that there's floats over there right now working on that. And then we'll start phase 2 next year. The swap shop will be open on May 9th from 9 a.m. to noon time, and that'll be at the Cedarville Transfer Station. Elmer Raymond Field and Briggs Field, they just started improvements on those tennis courts at those 2 locations. So in the past, folks would put this temporary striping there to use them as pickleball courts, but now they're using this, it's called high post tension tennis courts, and this was to last like 40 years. So spending a little bit more money up front, but they'll be dual use, so they'll only be used for tennis courts, but we're going to put permanent pickleball stripes as well. We're expecting those 2 fields to be complete in late June. The White Horse Beach restroom trailer will be open the week of May 18th in advance of Memorial Day. As far as DPW and Federal Furnace Road will be a mill and overlay. That's a 4-mile stretch. That's going to take a few weeks because of the 4 miles that we have to do. I just want to congratulate John McCormick for his retirement. He was a custodian for 24 years. Tom McNally, a custodian for 13 years, has also retired. And Richard Holmes, maintenance division, just retired as well, 37 years. So congratulations to those three individuals, and I wish them well in their retirement. The Arise grant program closed on May 1st. We received 12 applications. We don't intend to award all 12 of the applications. We have an independent review board, and we also have a sum of money that we will distribute these funds. It's about $250,000 to $300,000 per year. I just want to let folks know that I know there have been some discussions in the community about the launch. It's really considered a public service. So unfortunately, the individual who's been operating the launch for the last 5 years, I believe, Fran McMillan, he decided not to operate it this year. I'm meeting with the police chief tomorrow and the harbor master tomorrow so that we can put together a quick RFP. We know that there are some interested operators of the launch. So although there are concerns that we will not have a launch this year, we are confident that we'll be able to issue an RFP and then execute a contract just in time for Memorial Day. And as far as the election goes, 2,100 vote-by-mail ballots have gone out. 2,100. I think I reported 1,900 last week. Anyone who's interested in vote by mail, you must submit your application to the town clerk's office by Monday, May 11th at 5 p.m. The deadline is 5 p.m. It cannot be postmarked 5 p.m. It must be in here in the town clerk's office. Again, Monday, May 11th at 5 p.m. That's for the vote by mail ballots. And then early voting will begin on May 7th. That'll begin from 7:30 to 4 o'clock. And then this Friday, 7:30 to 12, will be early voting as well. And then Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3. And then early voting will end on Wednesday, the 13th at 4 p.m. I can't see these images that well, but I just wanted to bring, I can see it better up there. So just to draw your attention to the big screen, I just wanted to share some of these images. We had a wildfire, and you do know the fire chief has talked about his wildfire protection plan. They hope to complete this in the next 6 to 8 weeks. But this is the exact reason why he is working with other local agencies and state agencies. This was a brush fire that took place yesterday. It rapidly burned 2 acres of land in the southern part of town. And you can see the devastation it created. Again, we've had a lot of high winds, very dry out there, so we are at high risk to wildfires. But I want to just acknowledge, and so this is how close one of the homes were to this wildfire. You can imagine what could happen if if the fire department didn't make a quick stop. So I was in a meeting with the fire chief yesterday, and he ran out the door to get to this fire. They were able to make a quick stop. So a lot of credit to the fire chief, to his command staff, and all the firefighters who were able to extinguish this fire. This could have been much more devastating than it was, although we lost 2 acres of land. So thank you to our fire department for all that they do. But this just really speaks to the importance of our wildfire protection plan and the need to have this in place to prevent these types of fires in the future. Pending any questions, that's all I have this evening.
Questions from the board? Mr. Cohen?
Thank you. It's very helpful on the update on the wildfire conditions. I know that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and Miles Standish Forest has been working on their plan too, and I'm sure that the fire department is working with them because obviously Miles Standish Forest is a large area, 14,000 acres, and this is the time of year where the pine barrens are most susceptible, high winds and drought conditions. So if the history of these fires, they start small like this. So this is good news that it was stopped before it went only 2 acres and not hundreds. The other thing, last week you gave us an update on Water Street. I just wanted to go back and just remind me when will the street return to traffic for the season?
So I actually had a conversation this afternoon with the owner of Northern Contracting. They have 70 feet of sewer main that they have to repair. That is the extension from Memorial Drive north to the roundabout. So they're going to repair that. They've already driven the sheathing in. They hope to restart the project probably sometime later this week. They're hoping that this can be done in 2 to 3 weeks. So we really want them out of there by Memorial Day. They were delayed this week in restarting for contractual reasons, but I think we've solved that problem as of today. So we're hoping to get them out of there and the street put back together by Memorial Day.
Okay.
That's the goal.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Derek. All right, select board discussion, new business? Mr. Cohen?
Just wanted to just touch on, and maybe staff can figure this out. PAC Television, they broadcast these programs. I know I did hear from people, I think there was an event, a League of Women Voters debate, and some people couldn't hear that at home, and the screen was breaking up. So I just, I know there's a cable advisory committee. Obviously, that's one entity that residents can bring their concerns to if they're not getting a good broadcast on the public access stations. But the other thing is that tonight there was a few people who couldn't hear. I see in the back of the room we have a hearing aid is available for people, but I don't know where that hearing aid is. There's a little sign over there on the wall that says if you have a hearing problem, you can have some assistance. So just checking on that hearing aid sign that Mr. Bolton is now looking at. The other thing is the packets that we get. Any chance that we can get anything in advance in here? Tonight we had our meeting on budget oversight, but that's something that's an ongoing discussion. But I'm a big advocate of when a PowerPoint is coming up, it's always great to see it in the packet. That's something that I think that we should look at. And also, just under new business, the 250th anniversary Plymouth Committee, celebrating our country's anniversary at 250. They've been meeting on a regular basis. They have a subcommittee, and they're looking at an event on June 27th at 1 p.m. in Town Square. This would kick off a 250 celebration. So it'd be the week before the 4th of July. There'd be this ceremony in Town Square over by the 1749 courthouse. So we're working with town staff, we're working with the committee. I just wanted to make sure people knew that as of June 27th, which is a Saturday at 1 o'clock in Town Square, there'll be a ceremony to commence 250 celebration plans for Plymouth.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other new business? Letters? Old business? I do have one item. A couple weeks back, I presented a ballot question for taking the community's temperature on nuclear in town. We've since met with Eversource, the town manager, the chiefs, other staff. One of the things that came up during that meeting was that there are concerns for supply for electricity in the near future. They suggested that we bring in someone from the ISO to present to the community about options that we could have for electric generations in town. And so I would ask Derek that we bring someone in at their earliest availability. Is that something that you could arrange? Great. We will bring someone in. Mr. Canty?
I think it would also be beneficial in January of 2025. The board had an opportunity to go to the ISO, take a tour of it, and get to see how it works. But not all board members were able to join, but many were. But there's been a lot of turnover on the board since then. And I think it would be beneficial to have another opportunity to have the board visit. Staff may not need to join this time since there hasn't been so much turnover there, but Lauren could maybe come. But it was a good opportunity to see that it really drives the point home that power is a regional benefit, not a local, and it, you know, so it's something that I think people would find very enlightening and informative.
Any other old business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Cohan makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Canty seconds. Discussion? Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.